How's your mic? Does it sound really loud when you tap on it?
Hello, hello. A little bit loud. Your main volume? You want to turn down your main volume?
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. Good for you.
That's a bit better.
So cool.
Try yours,
How's your
Nico.
new facility down there?
It's great. It's very.
Which is, they never gets long, right?
Test. That's better.
Yeah, awesome.
Good afternoon, everyone. The November 4th, 2025 regular council meeting is called to order at 4:01. Council would like to acknowledge the Ucluelet on whose traditional territories the District of Ucluelet operates. Audience members and delegates are advised that this proceeding is being video recorded and broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, which may store data on foreign servers. Are there any late items? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt the November 4th, 2025 regular council meeting agenda as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Noel,
Second.
Councillor Anderson, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. There is one set of meeting minutes for adoption. That's the meeting minutes from October 2nd, 2025. Are there any errors or omissions? I have a few. On page 7, under the resolution that Council adopt the District of Ucluelet 2024 annual report as attached, I brought it to everyone's attention that there was a major typo on page 29. So should it not read
As amended.
that Council adopt the District of Ucluelet 2024 annual report as amended? So that's one change. On page 9, I corrected the fact that it's not Councillors Anderson and Noel as the district's representatives on the Ucluelet Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Committee for the 2026 term. It's Councillor Anderson and myself. So just make that correction. And on page 11, I reported out on 2 other meetings that I attended that just didn't get into the minutes. Maybe I talked too fast. Poor flow. I attended the housing workshop on the 19th and the Truth and Reconciliation open house at the high school on the 30th of September. Any other errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I have a motion to that the minutes of October 2nd, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted as amended?
I'll second.
Councillor Noel and Councillor Hoare seconded. Okay, thank you. All in favor? None opposed, that carries. We have 2 delegations on the agenda today. The first delegation is from Samantha Lynn, representing Surfrider Pacific Rim, regarding a 2025 update. Oh, you're there already. Okay. Awesome. Welcome. Sure. Make sure that mic is turned on, please. It's not on. It's just a...
Button. Yeah, it'll go green.
Boom.
You're
Okay.
on.
Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna. Oh, I have this mouse here, right? Hello, everybody. My name is Samantha, and I am the Media and Communications Director with Surfrider Pacific Rim. I've volunteered with Surfrider for almost 5 years now, formerly serving on the executive committee for the Vancouver chapter. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered on the traditional territory of the Ucluelet First Nation, and to thank the District of Ucluelet councillors and mayor for having us here today. So, okay. Our mission. Surfrider's mission is simple but powerful: to protect and enjoy the ocean waves and beaches for all people. For 18 years, our Pacific Rim chapter has worked to reduce plastic pollution and protect coastal ecosystems through collaboration with Ucluelet and Tofino. Together, we've achieved landmark single-use plastic bans, setting examples across Canada. Our focus areas include clean water, plastic reduction, coast and climate, ocean protection, and beach access, all of which support thriving coastal communities. Our programs are educational, data-driven, and action-based, restoring our coastlines through community involvement. Water-friendly businesses. This program has 205 registered businesses across BC, recognizing those that reduce single-use plastics. Our Youth Environmental Stewardship Program, also known as YES. So this is for the students at Ucluelet Secondary School, learn about plastic pollution, lead ocean cleanups. Rise Above Plastics brings plastic education to public events. Hold on to your butt. Over 2 million cigarette butts recycled to date, removing hundreds of thousands from local shorelines. We actually have also just partnered with a business in Tofino to keep this program going, and we expect to highlight it in 2026. Our beach cleanup program, I'm sure many of you have heard of it or even attended some. Regular cleanups, local and remote, where marine debris is collected and recycled through Ocean Legacy. Resurf. Got our friends here from Resurf. Surfboard and wetsuit circulatory and repair facility local to Ucluelet. The program is the first of its kind in the entire country and has been highlighted by many media outlets, the CBC, Surf Magazine, and many, many more. This is actually a trailblazing program from Surfrider Canada, so very exciting stuff, actually. Collaboration opportunities. Globally, Surfrider chapters also lead programs in water quality monitoring, coastal and dune restoration. We actually just did dune restoration with Parks Canada over at Schooner Cove. That was actually quite cool, and it's a new thing that we've done. We've never partnered with Parks Canada before. We also do marine habitat restoration and ocean-friendly gardens. And these are done by chapters across the country. So we have an Atlantic chapter, Vancouver chapter, Toronto even has one for their lakes. This past summer, we worked with Parks Canada, as I mentioned, in dune restoration. And we'd love to partner with the District of Ucluelet on a remote beach cleanup if anybody's keen. It's actually quite fun. It sounds much worse than it is. All right. And more importantly, I'd like to focus on our Take Back the Tap campaign, which is the purpose of my time here today. In 2020, Surfrider launched Take Back the Tap to help businesses in Ucluelet and Tofino voluntarily eliminate single-use plastic water bottles and transition to sustainable alternatives. We're proud to share that a majority of local businesses have already made the switch, and public refill stations have been installed between both communities to make refilling easy and accessible. Following this success, the District of Tofino has passed a bylaw banning the sale of single-use plastic water bottles 1 liter and under, which will take effect on Earth Day 2026. Between now and then, we're offering a grace period, so that's when it will actually go into effect. We're asking the District of Ucluelet to adopt a matching amendment to your single-use plastic bylaw, so both districts align in timing and approach. Surfrider's already working with Tofino on public and business educational materials for the rollout, resources that can be easily shared with Ucluelet to streamline communication and support a smooth transition. We recognize Ucluelet's new water treatment facility will not be operational until next fall. However, we are hopeful to see both bylaws take effect on Earth Day. 70 to 80% of local businesses have already adopted alternatives, many offering water in aluminum cans or promoting refills. Our refill stations exist, as I mentioned previously, and is actually here at the community center. This bylaw would formalize what the community is already doing, a natural next step in protecting our coastlines from unnecessary plastic waste. Now, something to keep in mind is that you can still purchase flats of water. We understand that not all communities have the best drinking water, so you can still purchase flats and you can still purchase 1 liters. It's single 500 milliliter bottles that we will see removed from businesses. Today, we are asking, will the District of Ucluelet pass a motion to begin the process of banning single-use plastic water bottles 1 liter and under in line with Tofino's bylaw? If there are hesitations, we would welcome the chance to understand specific concerns and work collaboratively on the subject. You don't have to answer right away. I've got more to say. Mug movement. Our next campaign, the Mug Movement, which is actually ongoing currently, expands the momentum to coffee culture, encouraging a shift from single-use cups and lids to reusable mugs. We're supporting local cafes to build a voluntary compliance with the goal of moving toward a bylaw in 2026 that mirrors the bottle ban's collaborative success. We're also inviting council's feedback. What plastic reduction campaign would you like to see next? And now keep in mind, we've gotten rid of a lot of single-use plastic. In fact, the Pacific Rim is the trailblazing community in the entire country to ban single-use plastics. Everyone else has adopted this across the country after us. So important to note, we are the trailblazers. Provincial and federal advocacy. So beyond local initiatives, Surfrider is active in provincial and national advocacy. So foam-free waters is a big one for us, advocating to ban expanded, what we call styrofoam, in aquatic infrastructure, so docks and whatnot. One of the most common materials found in marine debris, and I've done my fair share of remote cleanups over the many years I've been with Surfrider, and foam is the devil. It is the one thing that, there's 2 different types. There's the white stuff that you see in TV packing boxes and things like that. Once it breaks apart, it gets everywhere. I've been in caves over on Clayoquot, speckled all into the ceilings. It's awful. Bye-bye mini bottles. Supporting a provincial ban on single-use hotel amenities. So many hotels these days have the reusable pumps in the showers with body wash and shampoo. Hold on to your butt, which I've mentioned before, pushing for a federal ban on plastic cigarette filters. Partnering with MP Gord John's motion in the Ghost Gear recovery and supporting the Global Plastics Treaty negotiations internationally. I have been very slowly but surely collecting ink signatures to go to the House of Commons for this. I keep a clipboard in my car. I'm that crazy girl when I go shopping. I'm like, do you have a minute? All right. To close, I'd like to thank the District of Ucluelet Mayor and Council for your continued leadership on environmental initiatives and for giving Surfrider the opportunity to present. Together, we've already demonstrated what's possible when communities collaborate on plastic reduction. Aligning with Tofino's Take Back the Tap bylaw is a chance for Ucluelet to take the next step towards a plastic-free coastline and healthier ocean for everybody. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions while I'm up here. Hopefully I got at least a minute.
Thank you, Samantha. Did I not just recently read that Nanaimo banned the small water bottles as well?
So actually, I am supporting the growth of a Nanaimo chapter. They're in the process right now. I'll be over there to support their first info night. They are working towards it, and we are actually supporting Nanaimo with that. So we want to beat them to the punch, and actually this is riding on our coattails of our announcement from Tofino. So that rippled across the entire country. We saw news outlets all the way in Quebec picking it up.
Wow, that's great. So we have to get our butts in gear and make this happen before Nanaimo does.
Oh, 100%. And I can slow that down if you need me to.
Perfect.
I'll be meeting with them actually next week. Next Wednesday is the first or the second info night. The first one didn't have a great outcome, but the second one I will be there. Lily Woodbury will be there with me as well.
Great. Any questions from council to Samantha? Councillor Hoare?
Are there refill stations other than the one here at the UCC in Ucluelet?
There's also one at the aquarium. Yeah. And if we can in the future, we would love to implement more. There's so many local beaches and trails. There's obviously challenges with everything, but I mean, the most popular trails would be the Lighthouse Trail and the Wild Pacific Trail. We would love to see a refill station go up there if possible.
I'd totally support that. My other question, and this is regarding your mug movement one, are you guys aware of the Good Cup? The non-PLA lined, no plastic lid
Oh,
cups?
yes.
Cardboard ones?
Yeah, and so actually one thing that we were just discussing yesterday, I was in meetings with Surfrider until about 9 p.m. at the visitor center. We were talking about this and how we can, try and give incentive for other businesses who have not yet adopted some of our, requests. And that's actually digging into our pot and purchasing some products that maybe they could try using to see if it works for them. We understand cost is an issue, the rise of cost in everything nowadays. So we're actually going to try and support this by purchasing ourselves the materials and dropping them off at businesses who are a little on the fence about it.
No worries. I was just aware of the Good Cup because I was at a coffee place in Vancouver last spring and was given one, and it was the first time that I had encountered one that did not have a separate lid and did not have the plastic lining. And
Yeah, those plastic linings, it's tricky because you see a paper product, but the thing is, especially like having done cleanups, like a Slurpee cup, it's made of paper, right? But the printing on it is not. And actually that's a plastic lining and it keeps the drink cold. It keeps it from making the paper soggy. So, there's so many alternatives now that there's really no excuse aside from cost. And we honestly understand that. So we're going to do our best to try and support businesses who are, experiencing struggles or just simply don't have the time to look into it. We'll do it for you.
awesome. Thanks.
No problem.
Councillor Noel?
Yeah, it's good to see Surfrider still alive. Obviously, I'm well aware of the plastic bans that happened in the past. I think it's great initiatives. My only thing would be, as we're kind of the budgets, it's kind of convenient that Tourism Ucluelet's here next. It's the water refill, and I think that quite frankly, going off memory here, there was a bit of a drive to try to add one or two of those a year in the community. That's fallen off the wayside. So everything you're saying. Banning something is fantastic. I think it's great. I think we just need to make sure that we're budgeting. And then I know staff will probably wrap back. We're not going to make a decision here tonight for you.
Yeah, of course.
I know you like to get that decision out of us. But I think the bigger conversation is where should refill stations should be, right?
For
they
sure.
They should be on the main drag. But again, it comes down to money. What do those things cost, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's just a two-part to that. So.
Absolutely. And actually, because you mentioned that yesterday, we had a loose conversation about, hopefully Earth Day 2026, we have a big reason to celebrate.
What day is that? Just so we know.
I believe it's August or April 22nd,
Oh, geez,
April
around the
22nd
corner.
or April 26th, but 22nd. Yeah. So that being said, we did have a conversation about this yesterday, and in a perfect world, we have reason to celebrate on Earth Day beyond it being Earth Day. And, we could use this opportunity to take public input and vote on where they believe the best location should be. And then use, the information we have on can it be done in that area. So we could work with both districts to determine, can it be done in this area? And if so, let's make a list and get the public to vote on where it should happen and then start fundraising. So typically any event that we do, it involves a fundraiser of some sort. I'm the person that strong arms the money out of people. So hopefully we can see something like that happen, because it's not just, hey, we want to do this, now you do it for us.
Right. No. That I would say that you guys have a very healthy track record. Once you have a great group. I think it's a great community that you got. It's just there's going to be some money behind this.
For sure.
We just can't ban something and then not have alternatives set up in town. So
For
I
sure.
think it's a two-part thing. We happen to be in the budget season. I don't know what the next step is here. We'll work with our CAO, I think, with next steps. But it's a fun thing to do, right? you know, it's you guys are doing great stuff in town, so thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I think too the biggest issue is it's not so much locals; it's a lot of tourists who don't quite understand that the tap water is safe.
Well, it also goes back to Tourism Equila, right?
Yeah,
You know, it's their messaging, educating tourists to come here. You know, my biggest pet peeve is when tourists come here to go to the co-op, they all grab their ketchup and they grab their bottle, their mustard and their ketchup, their
Yeah.
relish, 2 water bottles, and then they go in the garbage about 2 days later, right? So I think that's education for Tourism Equila. So there's
100%.
a way to kind of amalgamate that. I don't know, but you guys have the passion to do that. We just need to make sure that
Yeah.
Tourism Equila is basically, you know, participating at some level. That's where they get the communication. He's head nodding. So you're obviously TU? Okay, there you go.
we got the right people in the room.
Yeah. So that's convenient. So you just kind of, you guys kind of do that. The messaging's cheap, right? I mean, it doesn't cost anything now to get messaging out. It costs money to put the refill stations in. So
Yeah.
trying to kind of educate the public.
Yeah. The good news is I just brought on an awesome girl from Relic who's helping with our messaging.
Okay.
And she's done a lot of local events in town. So we're hoping to work with a copywriter as well and, you know, really refine everything in 2026. 2026 is going to be a big shift for us, like as the chapter. You know, we're going to tighten everything up a lot more.
Well, you guys got a place to call home too, right? So it changes things for you. You guys got a gathering spot, so it's kind of fun. So I wish
Yeah.
you luck.
They got me now, and
Yeah, I can see that. You're like Lily. You don't put up with a no. So I like.
I've
it.
worked with a lot of investors over the years. So.
So I have a question about the refill stations. Does Tofino have any that are in public places that are outside as opposed to in a building like this one?
Yes, they do. And I'm very sorry to say I couldn't tell you exactly where they are right now, but there are. Oh, really? There's another one too, isn't there?
Next to the Tofetian coffee shop. The bus stop on the main drag. I'm just repeating what you say because people on Zoom can't hear you.
There's another one too, I believe, in town. I'm pretty sure it's close to the skate park somewhere. Yeah. See, I've seen it, but then I couldn't tell you the cross streets or anything like that. But they exist. They're there. And actually, many of the resorts, they all have refill stations right in the lobbies, and they have very clear signage pointing to them.
Yeah, my question was about the outdoor ones, just for the thought of vandalism, because I mean, nobody's going to vandalize this one because it's in a building and it's staffed, but some of the outdoor ones,
It'll happen. Yeah.
does it happen? Do you know?
I don't think we've ever seen anything like that. We haven't. I think, to be honest, I do know the only form of vandalism we've had to our, I guess, products or community facility use is the hold onto your butt canisters. People have stolen them.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Like, if you want to get rid of them, sure, but that's not what's happening. It's obviously someone looking for a smokable butt. But that's the only I've heard of. We've lost a couple sets of keys for them, and that's about it. So no vandalism. I think for the most part, you know, if people are going to vandalize something, it's probably not going to be our water refill stations. And actually, it's a good conversation to have with the rest of the team.
Right. Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, just thank you for the delegation. That was great. I'm a big fan of Surfrider, and yeah, hats off to you guys and Daniel for Resurf. It's been a huge success and kind of put Ucluelet on the map as a recycling center for
It has.
for wetsuits. Yeah, and it's also kind of been just a great spot to have people gather down there. So it's kind of putting us like, we've been in like some international magazines and surf magazines all over the place. And I know people are looking at us up in California and mentioning how progressive it is that we're doing that. So hats off to that. The only thing that is about the refill stations that bugs me is that Dan Law got to it before we could. So he got all the press on that one, and Vancouver Sun was like, oh, Tofino is the first to do it. But we do have a chance to beat Nanaimo. So yeah, she can slow it down. Well,
I can
very
slow it
competitive.
down. Trust me.
I'm just-
When I got my eyes on the prize, I can slow it down. I'll make it happen.
So I don't know how we. I guess that goes back to staff, or do we make it? We're not going to make a motion on the fly because people hate that. So
No, we don't ever make a motion on the fly.
no. But we'll. Yeah, I think that sounds
Yeah.
like a great idea.
Yeah, and you know, it's if anything, I can divert the conversations in terms of us being first. I can divert that conversation at the Nanaimo meetings because I will be at all of them. Being that I've been with Surfrider for one of the longest volunteers, people often think it's my job. It's not. I do have a full-time job, but it's not my job. And that being said, I do take it very seriously. It is a labor of love, and I involve myself as much as I can wherever I can. So supporting the Nanaimo chapter is important to me, because why isn't there a Mid-Island chapter already? There's plenty of beaches, but I can definitely divert the conversations to saying, well, we're doing this. And we don't need to talk about Nanaimo at your Nanaimo meetings.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. And I also think you were also talking about the remote cleanup and partnering with that. So if you want to talk to staff about setting something up there, we could get on board with that as well. We've been out to surf in places in the middle of nowhere, up Hashquit and Nootka, and you go to a place it's there's nothing around, and you get out of you paddle up to the beach, and it's just a sea of different colors. There's from shampoo bottles and lighters, and the plastic is just out of hand. So I think we're all on the same page here. I think you might
100%.
want a condiment dispenser. It sounds like the next thing.
Like Costco.
Yeah, that could be the next initiative.
Yeah. No, and the remote cleanups are really special because you do get to go places that nobody else can go. We do seek permissions from First Nations before we go to those places. And typically we're restricted to X amount of volunteers attending. Like actually on the 15th, we've been invited by the Lighthouse Keepers of Leonard Island to come and do a cleanup, and they've only allowed 5 of us to come.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't know if anyone remembers the National Film Board videos back in the day when you would be watching TV and you'd get a commercial break, but it was a heritage moment video. There was actually a 20-minute one done on Leonard Island, and the only people who go there are the Lighthouse Keepers and the Coast Guard. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity to see parts of the area that you would never get to see otherwise.
That makes your job worthwhile.
It's exactly, because when people say, well, where were you over the weekend? I'm like, you're not allowed to go. Sorry. But we've hauled like 5,000 pounds of trash out. It's been more than one boat ride on one single trip. And we go rain or shine. We were supposed to be going to Leonard Island tomorrow morning, but unfortunately the boat driver deemed it unsafe. We said we'll still go, but we're not driving the boat.
Makes sense. All right. Well, thank you, Samantha, and staff will be in touch with you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Our second delegation is from Nick Curry, representing Tourism Ucluelet, regarding a 2024 review and a 2025 strategic update. Welcome, Mr. Curry.
Just give me 2 seconds while I got set up here.
You bet.
Well, hello, and Mayor and Council, thank you very much for having me here today. I do want to note there was a little error in my request, not that I submitted. So it's going to be a 2025 update, and I wanted to touch on 2026, but due to time constraints, I'm going to hold off on getting into details for 2026. So my name is Nicholas Curry. I'm the Tourism Development Specialist at Tourism Ucluelet. As I mentioned, I'll be doing a 2025 update with a very, very brief outlook into 2026. And I have some maybe suggestions on a cadence for future presentations, as it's really hard to try and fit 2 years into one presentation. The outline today, so I'm going to touch on some key numbers to start off with, dive into some highlights from marketing and other initiatives that we've been launching through 2025, briefly touch on key issues and 2026 strategic priorities. The key numbers that I wanted to just highlight right off the bat here are MRDT and OAP numbers, which everyone I'm sure is familiar with. And so just noting that we only have data up until June with the recent strike, there's been a delay in the reporting and distribution of MRDT and OAP. So as you'll see from January to June here in the MRDT category, we saw a 10% growth and we saw a 20% growth in OAP. And so I'm sure everyone's aware, but just clarifying, with OAP is a stream of MRDT collection, and that's when people book through online accommodation platforms, versus MRDT is when people pay directly to the accommodation providers. So this data demonstrates, along with past data from 2024, that we are seeing more people visiting Ucluelet year over year. We are noticing that OAP is increasing at a higher rate than MRDT, and that might be due to people's preference for how they book and how they pay online, as well as accommodation providers shifting from where they list their accommodations. Right now, it does look like OAP would be outpacing MRDT, but I just wanted to note that in the summertime, there is more room for growth in the MRDT stream, so it tends to shift once summer's passed. So with that, in 2024, we saw OAP account for close to 40% of quote unquote revenue or funds collected. I'm going to dive into that a little bit more and just highlight some interesting facts there. So this is all self-reported data from the different RMI communities, but I did want to highlight that only 3 of 14 RMI communities commit 100% of their OAP funding to affordable housing. And Ucluelet has, of those 3, Ucluelet has the highest percentage skewed towards OAP. So at the end of the year, we're roughly looking at 60% of those funds going into MRDT and 40% going to OAP. So the other 2 communities, Revelstoke and Tofino, Revelstoke is roughly 88% MRDT to 12% OAP, where Tofino is roughly 80% MRDT to 20% OAP. So I think this is really amazing, and I'm like, as an organization and community, I think it's really exciting to say that we're accumulating between $500,000 and $600,000 a year in that OAP fund, and it's all going towards affordable housing. And this is not meant as a negative, but is something to highlight as well too. So in comparison to other RMI communities or tourism economies of similar sizes, we have less funds available for management, destination development, and marketing. Now, we don't have the MRDT distribution numbers, but we do scrape data from AirDNA, which is Airbnb, as well as VRBO. And this is showing that we've had growth almost every month through September in short-term rental revenue. So that would equate to more OAP. We did see a downturn in August of 2.4%, which isn't huge, but because of how big of the numbers are in August, it will have a large impact over OAP collection for the year. It does essentially off-skews the growth in every other month. I highlighted the off-season versus peak season below just for to demonstrate some of the differences between January and July, and also just reiterate that it's still a large strategic direction of Tourism Ucluelet to try and shift some of that dispersion to try and increase in off-season visitation. The other thing I wanted to highlight is the visitor center. So for a variety of different reasons, we've seen really strong growth at the PRVC. So quarter over quarter, 2025 outperformed 2024 by really large numbers. It is one of the busiest in BC, and it welcomes like tens of thousands of people annually. And I think it's a really important aspect as like the gateway to the west coast of Vancouver Island. We've also been increasing our staffing out there over the past 2 years, adding more hours as well. And I think that that's created a more reliable and consistent visitor experience. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to the staff that service all those that service all the visitors for continuing to deliver exceptional service during extremely busy peak summer months. I'll dive into some marketing aspects from 2025 and then move on to some other tactics after that. We made two big moves in 2025. We did a brand development as well as brought on an agency of record. Both of these went to RFPs, and after a careful selection process, the contracts were awarded. And so for the brand development, we really wanted to build a clear, authentic identity for Tourism Ucluelet. When I first started this position, we were really missing like key factors for brand identity, like the visual identity as well as narrative, tone of voice, and messaging. And so after we got that document, it's really created like a foundational guide for us as an organization. We also onboarded the agency of record, and that's going to allow us to streamline our marketing actions and increase.
Can I just interject for a second, Your Worship? Do you mind if I ask a question? What's agency of record? I don't know what that.
Yeah, of course. If I'm saying any acronyms or anything,
just get away from the acronyms. Just would be wonderful.
Yeah, 100%. So agency of record essentially is someone that we've brought on to facilitate our marketing actions, doing our marketing buys, building our campaigns.
Okay, so he's pretty much doing what Brent used to do and some of your previous. Which is that a local contractor or is that a town contractor?
So yeah, they're based in Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah. And so essentially this enables stronger and more strategic off-season campaigns, which is aligned with our brand direction, ensures marketing efforts are coordinated across all of our channels. So instead of going ad hoc 1v1, we have someone who's going to be looking at this from a broad picture and delivering those. I'm not a graphic designer by any means, but these are just some clip arts that I put together from the brand work development that we had done. I also wanted to highlight, as you folks probably know, we don't do any marketing for the summer. We don't promote the summer season in Ucluelet at all. But what we do is responsible visitor messaging to people in the community and to communities just outside on Vancouver Island, with the goal of encouraging responsible travel behavior, planning ahead, booking before they're arriving, respecting the community and the environment, maybe promoting not buying single-use ketchup and mustard bottles in the future. Who knows? Across these, we use Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, as well as Google, which is Google Search and YouTube, and reaching hundreds of thousands of people with those campaigns at the same time. We did launch a really large fall campaign with the marketing agency that we brought on, Evans Hunt, as well as a shorter and smaller campaign promoting the Edge to Edge this fall. Both have been really successful in their own rights. We've generated almost 1 million impressions with the Evans Hunt campaign so far, 10,000 clicks going through our website, and seen significant growth to our website. So 43% year over year sessions, 58% increase in users, and a conversion rate increase of 167%. Which would be, people clicking through. So not just viewing the ads, but actually taking action once they arrive on the website. Our Edge to Edge campaign was quite a bit smaller, but it was also really, really successful. And we saw hundreds of clicks going directly to the Edge to Edge website. We've also been leading a regional campaign, Pathways of the Pacific. So it was it's a co-op marketing campaign through DBC. So we applied for this. It is between Tofino, Ucluelet, Port Alberni, and Bamfield. And all of the funding that we applied for is matched by DBC. So it's a really good way to leverage our marketing funds. And the main goals of this campaign are to reimagine the journey, essentially coming from some of the negative press that's happened around the highway and the difficulty of getting out to the coast, encourage seasonal dispersion, strengthen regional collaboration, and to promote responsible travel. Diving into some actions that are not exactly marketing related, just highlighting some of our the conference and event strategies, the ambassador program, some of the data we've been purchasing and acquiring, as well as the Ucluelet language and culture update that we did to our website, and then some engagement and development as well. We've been attending a variety of different conferences to develop our network and learn from industry leaders. So the Impact Sustainability Conference, International Indigenous Tourism Conference, the BC Tourism Industry Conference, and the Vancouver Island Stewardship Summit most recently. Not exactly in the same category, but I also attended the Vancouver Adventure Trade Show, which was for promotion and awareness of Ucluelet as a destination. Some other things to highlight from that events and conferences category is in the off season this year, we were proactive in bidding and supporting larger conferences and events to come to Ucluelet. So we won the bid for Explore Vancouver Island, which was a travel trade show event, which brought 70 industry professionals into Ucluelet in the heart of winter. We supported financially and through administrative aid for Gymnastrada, which was a gymnastics event for youth that saw 500 participants come out to the West Coast, and also supported the BC Indigenous Tourism Conference, which was held right here in April. And then we're still administering our Events and Experiences Fund. And so this is a community program designed to support and amplify local events that enhance the visitor experience, strengthen community vibrancy, and drive year-round visitation. Some of the events that we supported through that fund are listed there below. Again, we also are supporting the administration of the Ambassador Program, so working with the Raincoast Education Society, Tourism Tofino, and the Chamber of Commerce. We support the program financially and through active participation in monthly planning and development meetings, while the Raincoast Education Society leads the implementation of that. And then just touching on some of the data tools and tactics that we've been working on. So I already mentioned AirDNA, which tracks short-term rental performance. New this year is Data Appeal, which provides destination insights through visitor sentiment. Essentially, they scrape like all of the reviews online through Google or other sites where people can provide reviews and insights into the destination. For research and monitoring, we did a stakeholder survey, which was submitted with our 2024 annual plan. We're in the process of doing a visitor profile data. So in this process, we will identify visitor types and track identify visitor profiles, so who's visiting Ucluelet. And then at the same time, I've set it up so we will have like geofenced the areas where different RMI projects have gone on, and we'll collect data on those pre and post. So before the project was implemented and after, and we can see the impacts that those RMI projects have happened. This has been in collaboration with the district. And we're also launching a residents perception survey, which will happen in November here, and it's to measure community attitudes towards tourism. Another really exciting thing that we implemented this year was website updates, and so this was guided by the work of the Ucluelet government and some of the language and cultural documents that they provided us with, and we provided a widespread shift on our website to adopt correct Barclay West dialect of Nuu-Chah-Nulth language, and do a variety of other things. But I think it was a really important aspect of our website that was lacking, and will help strengthen cultural accuracy, enhance learning opportunities for visitors, and reflect Tourism Ucluelet's ongoing commitment to reconciliation and respectful representation in partnership with the Ucluelet government. We've been doing a variety of different engagement and development, regular standing meetings with the District of Ucluelet, the Ambassador Program Committee, working with our arts community through the Outer Coast meetings, and continuous collaboration with operators, nonprofits, and businesses. Some exciting initiatives happening in November. We're going to be bringing in business development coaches that will provide one-on-one coaching sessions and be sponsored by Tourism Ucluelet to support different initiatives and needs of those businesses. just today, we held a regenerative tourism workshop in the activity room number 1, and are going to be implementing Tourism Tuesdays throughout November, which will have sector-specific discussions for accommodation, retail and service, food and beverage providers. Some key issues I did want to touch on. Throughout the year, we had some big issues with our website. Crashing and slow load times were really painful in the beginning of the year. We've had constant complaints from our stakeholders with the availabilities page, which is a section of the website that operators and accommodation providers utilize to provide up-to-date information on current availabilities. And we've been trying to implement new software onto the website, but haven't been able to due to the back end. So essentially, it's come down to the structure of the website is really poorly written. This is all beyond my knowledge, but that's what the web developers have told me. The other thing I want to highlight is the PRVC building and the facilities surrounding it. With it being such an important feature of people's experience as they arrive on the West Coast, the building is very, very old, slowly falling apart. Parks Canada has announced that they do not want to put any major finances towards repairs, and the same thing extends to the bathrooms as well. They're often looking pretty terrible in the middle of the summer rush. As an organization, we struggled a little, like many other organizations in Ucluelet. We struggled to hire enough staff for visitor servicing. I've also started to identify that our budget and our tactics have increased, but our staff capacity has not. And also have identified that we need to have a stronger focus on stakeholder engagement and outreach. So with that being said, a very quick touch on some of the strategic priorities that are going to be guiding our 2026 plan. Sustainable managed growth aligned with community values. We're going to continue to expand on to try and drive growth in the off season through the Events and Experience Fund, event attraction, like I'd already mentioned, and by supporting anchor events, highlighting the Edge to Edge, Canadian Longboard Championships, and development of new initiatives. We really want to continue to focus and strengthen our relationship and collaboration with the Ucluelet government, focus on stewardship, workforce development, and improved internal systems. Continued partnership or continued leadership in the Pathways of the Pacific co-op marketing campaign, exploration of developing some initiatives between Ucluelet and Bamfield, and we've essentially started to integrate to make sure that we're integrating the tourism master plan's key ideas and identifying how our tactics in our plan trace back to each and every single one of them. So thank you. I had it timed for like 16 minutes, but I'm positive I went over that. So I appreciate you listening to me that whole time. As I mentioned in the very beginning, I'd love to hear feedback on a cadence for the council to feel like they have enough information at the right time of the year.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Would it be possible to get a copy of your PowerPoint slide deck? That'd
100%.
be great. Perfect. Because there was a lot of interesting data there that I didn't have time to write down, but I'd love to go over it.
Yeah.
Any questions for Nick? Councillor Noel?
Anyways, how often have you presented to this council?
This is my second presentation.
And you've been in the role for how long?
Year and a half.
I was a little surprised that Surfrider left because I thought that was a good opportunity for them to kind of chime in with you, but that's a lost opportunity for them. You mentioned on the parks thing, that's probably a conversation offline with you, Mr. Harding. The parks, that property's been challenging over the years with the different superintendents the parks has. It's our property. We act like it's not our property, but every time there's a garbage can or if it just looks disheveled, that's a reflection upon us. And we've had Tesla in the past, anxious to put stations there. I don't know who's in charge. Again, I don't know how this council's interacted with Tourism Eculet or Parks Canada or the Junction in recently, but with the recent upgrades that Highways has done to the Junction, you can tell there hasn't been much dialogue between anybody. So I think there's what you're saying is totally valid. Parks has zero money. The federal budget's out. That hey, gigs up. Parks are probably going to lay off half their staff, and they're going to have nothing for infrastructure. I think we need to look at a different strategy that's been going on for a dozen years now, literally, and we need to look at that property completely differently, and as opposed to just a spot where there's a couple bathrooms. I appreciate the work that you're doing, but I think the bigger conversation, Mr. Harding, is who's in charge? What is really the plan for the next, for the foreseeable future? Because the parking lot itself that you see is only half the property. That property is a substantial property to the gateway to the West Coast, and what I didn't see in your 2026 plan is, we need to come up with a strong strategy about how we welcome people to the West Coast. We're just fortunate that we actually own that piece of property, so we're not, I think we need to start acting like owners rather than visitors on our own property. A couple more bonus round ones, Nick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad. I didn't know where you were going to go with the OAP. I thought you were thinking maybe the OAP wasn't. I love the fact that online platform is filling up that bank account. I think we've got a planning department and some great ideas. I think seeing that money come in, again, it's another opportunity for our district to really come up with a strong strategy. When you're going to have 300,000 plus a year coming into of steady funding, we as a community need to start doing things with it, watching it grow and grow and grow. I think that's terrible on our part. So I'd hope in 2026. I imagine that you have Eucluathought still on your board. Is Melissa still on your board?
Melissa's not with the organization anymore, but
okay.
we still hold a seat for, and we have Rose a Day right now filling that
Perfect.
position. Yeah.
So wonderful. So you have still a very engaged board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. No, I think it's great. I know, honestly, it's great to see the report. I just hope that we can maybe come up with a different strategy, because what we've done to date, it's been great with branding. I don't think we need to advertise. You can shut down your advertising tomorrow. The tourists are coming here, and it's okay to be the doing what everybody else isn't doing. In particular, with the funding that's coming in via tourism. So thank you for your presentation, and I think you got lots more work, Mr. Harding, just to try to figure out and starting to act like it's our facility. I don't know if you have any comments on that one.
Well,
Thank you.
unfortunately, it's not our facility; it's our property. The facility is owned
Again,
by
that's
Parks
you're
Canada.
exactly. So you're echoing the mentality of how we continue to go there, because it's not our building. The building and nothing. There's no value to it. So Parks Canada doesn't contribute. It's our property. They don't want to invest in it. We just got to come up with a different strategy. They always threaten us. They're going to put a different building somewhere else. And a comment the mayor just made, we got to change that mentality of, oh, it's not our building, it's our land, and we need to come up with a different strategy. We've inherited this. We just need to come up with a different strategy. I'm just one voice here, but that's not the answer.
There has been a lot of discussion going on recently, probably before you came back onto council, about what to do with that property.
Beautiful.
Because it definitely needs some love. There's no doubt about it. And Dave Tuvell, the superintendent, he does attend Tourism Euclid meetings occasionally to give updates.
And all I'm saying is they have no money. So Dave can come there. He can go to another 100 meetings. There is going to be no outcome. So the reality is 2026 is an opportunity to try to squeeze some different outcomes, because Parks is just they're a partner. Yes, they own the wonderful building that they haven't put any money into. We just got to have maybe some different expectations and maybe look at the contract in general. That's all I'm saying. Or you're going to be back here in 12 months and asking for some more investment. So I think it's an opportunity to reinvest and really understand that Parks isn't a part. They're a tenant. They're not just because they own the building doesn't mean anything.
Do we know when?
That's just my opinion.
Do we know when that contract expires, Nick, with the park?
I think they issue them in like 10 years.
Increments.
Yeah.
Mr. Harding, any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. The only comments I would say is that we are discussing a lot with Mr. Curry. We're actually meeting on site with staff to look at some of the issues that Councilor Noel was mentioned, and also I think Tourism Ucluelet has identified some opportunities. I know as staff also realizing that it's such an amazing entranceway into the community. What are some options that we could look at and come back and present to council and work with council on some ideas. So there's definitely some opportunities there.
Yeah, it was really disappointing to see highways put that much money into the junction without any kind of consultation or engagement of trying to change that whole area. We all know we send the fire trucks there probably almost weekly sometimes for an accident, and so it was a lost opportunity. And I'm hoping you can squeeze a new opportunity out. But Parks Canada has already showed what kind of partner they are to the community. We owe them nothing. We owe this to ourselves about really reestablishing the property in a different way.
Councillor Anderson?
Just a quick question. Sorry, you guys at the back are probably like, oh God. Of the ones that are OAP and like how many, and this might be impossible to answer because of the scraping, but I'm just more curious at how many are both. So someone has the opportunity to call the business directly and go online. So like, and what, you know what I mean? Like, so I wonder how many of what we're looking at could go either way. And if that sort of growth that we see with OAP is because people that could go to MRDT or go directly to the business go on to the online platform.
Yeah, kind of an impossible question to answer. So and I've dug into it a little bit. My understanding is that, so say even BlackRock, if someone's booking via Expedia and pays Expedia directly, that gets put into the OAP fund. So it's about where the collection point is, not based on the kind of accommodation it is.
Right.
And so, I mean, we could dive into it a little bit with the AirDNA data, and I can actually identify and pull up addresses on where those are. So it is something we could do in a little more detail. We've definitely seen an increase in the amount of listings across VRBO and AirDNA, but again, like that data source then doesn't cover Expedia. It only covers VRBO and so
and Airbnb.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm always just curious, like in the back of my head, of like when people come and they visit, it's usually return guests that will book directly the second time once they've sort of spent that extra 15 or 10% or whatever that it costs to do the online one. That's it. That's a great presentation. The only other thing I would say is I would get ready for the next sort of wave of tourism. I think here is probably, in my opinion, is going to be some economic development stuff where we have some really cool things happening in Ucluelet. One of them is vessel electrification with Rising Tide Boat Works, and I know that they're on board with incorporating that into having some sort of amenity where tourists can see some of the exciting things that are happening here. So fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, and that's like in our wheelhouse. We're very supportive of that, and like Redfish will be launching the regenerative or the interpretive center, stewardship center. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I think along with Resurf, there's lots of really great opportunities there, and when we do present the 2026 plan, I think you'll see a lot of really exciting initiatives that are not related to marketing. And for me, I think that's a huge focus. You'll see in our upcoming plan is the shift to the quality of visitors and the interactions while they're in town versus just trying to get more people here.
Right. Cool. Well, thank you for your delegation. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Is there any unfinished business? No, seeing none, we have one bylaw for adoption on the agenda. It will be presented by Tyler Brown, Director of Planning and Strategic Initiatives. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Council. This item is essentially for the adoption of road naming bylaw number 1321/2025. The staff recommendation is to adopt the bylaw on page 17 of your agenda. Page 17 and 18 highlight the the changes that would result in this bylaw, specifically some new road names, and also some linguistic considerations. Happy to answer any questions. It has been referred to the nation, and comment back was minimal, but positive. Thank you.
Thank you. So apparently there were 3 missing road names on the last bylaw, is that right? That have now been added? Alina Road,
Correct.
Park Lane,
And Tyee
and
Terrace.
Tyee Terrace, that's right. So those have now been added, and then Hemlock Street has been changed from road to street, which is how everybody has been referring to it. So that means some street signs will have to be changed, I guess.
Yes.
And then there are 3 new ones from what I can see, Shore Pine Drive, Sitka Place, and Spruce Street, which is part of Lot 13.
That is correct.
First light, yeah. Great. It's that was a really good report. I must say this particular agenda package has some really interesting reports in it for us to consider. So any questions for Mr. Brown about the street names? Councillor Noel?
You're at adoption. I hate everything about it. I think the names, it echoes when you look in the staff report and you see, Mr. Ruchert's signature on the old report from 2008, I believe. And to think that we're going to name 3 streets after a couple trees, I think it's just a bit of a cop-out. I think it's, we can do a lot better. I think this is, we're so worried about upsetting anybody. Prior to this, the work that we have done with Eucluathought on names, trying to put names with things, and 50% of the time it works out. I'm not supportive of anything in it. I think it's great to clean it up. I grew up on Hemlock Street. It'll always be Hemlock Street to me. Whether it's road or street's insignificant. Again, sometimes things not being perfect is okay. That's what we're all about. And that's right. I brought a little book. And when I look at town, and if you work for town, this is your homework. This is going to be mandatory. You read this. I think we need to start realizing where we are. And I think when we put 3 street names because we don't want to get creative or we don't want to upset anybody, I think it's not who we are to kill it. And as insignificant this bylaw could be to a lot of people, to me it just shows that we're trying not to be unique, and we're not trying to protect our own history. We're just trying to name it off a couple trees because our neighbors can pronounce it. I think that's totally a cop-out. So I am not in favor of this adoption whatsoever. I think the staff has done a lot of work, but it doesn't represent our community in any way.
I think one of the considerations for the street names was that they could be translated into New Chalnuth. Is that correct?
I
didn't ask you.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Mr. Brown.
To you, Mayor, and to Council, I must admit I was just coming here to get the report across the adoption across the finish line. So the complete history of that is not something that I have access to at my immediacy.
I think that was one of the considerations because you've driven around town, you've seen how our street signs are bilingual, and so that was a consideration when coming up with street names, was that they could be translated, and so that we could have a majority, not all, but a majority of our signs bilingually.
That's my understanding as well, Mayor.
Yeah.
And I know you're just coming into this, and I'm just, you guys can do what you need to here to the left, but again, I think it's a lost opportunity, and every decision like this, we lose a little bit of who we are. So, as much as you want to say that you want to be able to get the proper dialect from our neighbors, they're not going to be offended because you put it over someone that's important to us, or a person or item that we deem it's appropriate. So thinking that President McCarthy or Geneva or anyone are going to be upset because we chose to put a street name on something because we can't be able to get the proper pronunciation is I think is completely false.
Councillor Anderson?
Oh, I think we're in it now. Let's have the conversation. I'm all for it. When it was first pitched, and I remember there was a decolonization a feel to it, and that was in the report. But yeah, I'm struggling with it too, because we have like St. Jake's, right? So we have these roads, and is it inappropriate moving forward? So if we wanted to memorialize somebody that was really important to this town by using their last name, I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate these waters here, and I like having this conversation, because would it be wholly inappropriate in the future if we wanted to like memorialize a name and have
And when I say it could be a name, it could be a mountain, it could be a fish. The point is, it's just a lost opportunity, and I'm glad that you were questioning it, because it's. I know when these roads were coming before this council, when these subdivisions, I remember that conversation about a great opportunity for us to go back to the community about what these names could look like, not over a Sitka tree, and so again. We're not the city of Nanaimo. We don't get the opportunity to do this too many times. So I like Hemlock Street, and I like St. Jake's and Lauren White. I like most of the streets that give a little bit, and even Forbes Road. And if you don't know what those names mean, read the book. It's a wonderful read, and it. My business partner was reading about his family, who I know the Lees, that there's streets in Millstream where his family came here in the late 1800s. So there's a lot of us that have been here a long time, and again, it's a bit of a mockery, I think, when the people that I represent would see a couple signs go up, and I think that we're not doing justice to our community and our little bit of history that we can hang on to. And as much as it's just a road name, I think there's also an opportunity to just capture a little bit of our history and not be embarrassed about it.
So it's my understanding that every time a road is created, such as the Weyerhaeuser recent ones, that the developer has an opportunity to come up with suggestions, just like on page 33, ACMC Holdings put forward 4 suggestions. They aren't all trees.
I would imagine when he was asked to be given the choices, he was probably led into a certain direction. He's not here to defend himself, but the reality is, anyways, I probably labored. I made my point. I just want to say that it's a lost opportunity, and I don't like anything about it, and I won't be in support of it.
So my point is, next time a developer creates a new road, that developer will have an opportunity to come up with some suggestions for that road, and they may not be tree names. They could be something that developer feels strongly about. Am I correct, Mr. Harding?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also just learning some of this. In fact, we researched to figure out where the last policy was sent for council, and we found a report that was presented to council in 2020. Sorry, this is a long answer to your question. There was a report done in 2023 that would seem quite inclusive and a lot of detail, but we don't believe it was ever adopted. So that's one thing. I don't know, Mr. Chow, if you can talk about that, what you found.
Yeah, there was 2 related to policy, and we just don't find the signed copy. So it could be the previous CAO just approved, not on the council meeting minutes either.
So thank you, Mr. Chow. On that, though, I think that's a report that we should probably bring back to you, and the council can then add different components to it, and to ensure that there are ways of engaging some creative signage or names for roads. But to answer your direct question, yes, a developer can come in with those names. My experience is that it doesn't usually come to council, but in QQ you have that, which I think is unique, and it's something that can provide diversity and some creativity, because it does come back to your table. With that, one of the reasons we quickly pushed this, to be honest, is that the developer for Lot 13 just wanted to get a sign up, and so we realized that this bylaw wasn't adopted, so we quickly put it on so we can get a sign up. But we're willing to do whatever council would like to do.
Yes, so I think moving forward, these ones have already been suggested and decided upon. But going forward, there is an opportunity for another developer and at another time to come up with a name that is not a tree name. It's not etched in stone.
Do you mind if I?
Yeah, Councillor Anderson?
Yeah. Unless you wanted to jump in here. Just let me step in it here. Yeah, and I just didn't know if there was an element, and I wanted to just be careful of sort of a false sense of reconciliation here. And I think like there's parts to this that I think decolonization or whatever can be a bit of I agree with a lot of that, but then it's a slippery slope in some ways. And there's some like local heroes like the Pat Leslie boat launch, for example. And I wouldn't want to feel guilty about calling it the Pat Leslie boat launch, because I just wouldn't want to set a precedent moving forward where, we're bad people for acknowledging maybe someone that was a contributor to this municipality and have that sort of etched on our roads. And I think that's an okay thing. And so I kind of agree with I like the conversation, at least we're talking about this.
Great. So there is a recommendation. It doesn't specify that all roads must be named after trees. If anyone would like to move that. Or I can move it. I'll move that council adopt District of Euclid Road naming bylaw number 1321, 2025. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Noel seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? So that's a tie, which means it's defeated, correct? Okay. It's too bad Councillor Mafty wasn't online. He's still not online, is he?
No, he just landed in Toronto.
Oh.
It's all right. He was swung my way.
Mayor, if we can, with since there's an impasse with this, we will dust that 2023 report off, bring it back on the 18th. It has a lot more detail of the types of road choices you can have.
I remember seeing it, yeah.
So in that time, we'll bring it back, and then if there's some other ways that we wanted to explore getting ideas in for different road namings, that can be included in that report.
So this is going to stall Mr. McLean for putting his road sign up.
There's not even foundations put in, so there's no one going there tomorrow.
I just heard that he was in a hurry, so I just want to make sure that he understands that there will be a delay now.
Mayor, I'm not positive, but I think it may have implications for the finalization of the subdivision. So you might find us in front of you very quickly trying to address that. So ultimately, the parcelization, I believe, can occur, but we'll just have to make sure that if that's not the case, we will need to be back in front of you very quickly to make sure that subdivision can be finalized.
So it's my understanding that the Weyerhaeuser subdivision is finalized. So that's not obviously waiting on these street names.
No, and so I'm just gonna have to. I don't want to suggest one thing, but I'd have to go through the PLA for Mr. McLean's subdivision just to make sure that it's structured in a way that we can indeed. I just wanted to sort of prime the pump that if we do need to be back in front of you quickly, we will be to make sure that proceeds.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Brown. There are 5 reports on the agenda today. The first report is titled Housing Accelerator Fund Update, and it will also be presented by Mr. Brown, Director of Planning and Strategic Initiatives.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to turn it over very quickly here to Ms. Henderson to walk you through it. It is a media report, and so we're here to answer any questions and take the time to go through it properly and make sure council is confident in any decisions that it makes. But just before I turn it over, I will just say very quickly The intent of the recommendations before you is responding to a situation where we are restrained for time with respect to the HAF grant funding, or the Housing Accelerator Fund grant. We do need to satisfy certain commitments as the district to make sure that the grant installments are transferred to the district. So with that said, we don't just want to be checking boxes. We also want to be making sure that the projects are beneficial for the community. And that's where Mrs. Henderson and her team have, I think, done a very good job on a short time period to identify potential path forwards for the district and how it may satisfy those two criteria. So I'll turn it over to her, Ms. Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mayor and Council, thank you for having us. And we have a presentation here for you that Aaron will set up, and hopefully we'll advance it accordingly. We do have a bit of an agenda overview just that we'll provide just so that you can see what we're getting into here. We'll just kind of go over the purpose. We'll talk about some updated CMHC information that we received on October 15th that has sort of changed our initial plan a little bit. And then we've broken the project into two phases based on CMHC's recent direction, into a phase 1 and a phase 2. So we'll provide an overview of what that looked like and the intention. And then we'll go into each of the phase 1, which are the immediate needs to meet the terms of the HAF agreement, and how we're proposing to council that they could be addressed. And this is obviously a very key meeting because of the time frame to get direction from council to guide, how we move forward. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps. So just to sort of reiterate, the purpose of the meeting is, as council is well aware, is you have this Housing Accelerator Fund agreement. It has a timeline associated with each of the initiatives, with many that were scheduled to be due in December. And then so what we would like to do, and in our conversations previously, it is clear that the district wants systemic change that goes beyond what was committed in the HAF agreement. And the conversations with CMHC, we hoped would translate into them providing a little bit more time for that. And while CMHC is very supportive of the systemic change and using the Housing Accelerator funds to pay for that, they do want the terms of the agreement met by the end of this year, the ones that are slated to be met by the end of this year. So the phase 1 purpose of this is really focusing in on meeting those terms, and phase 2 is a systemic change that will make broader long-term changes to essentially streamline housing in the community for decades to come. And so we're really looking to focus in on phase 1, but keeping our eye on phase 2 with council as we do that. And that's really the purpose of the presentation. And then in terms of the CMHC direction, Aaron, if you could just advance, in terms of we had discussions with them, there seemed to be willingness to have some flexibility in the timeline, and there was some empathy with the district situation regarding staff changes and capacity associated with being a very small community. But as that message went up the chain at CMHC, it came back down with an absolutely not, and that we need to meet the terms of the HAF agreement in order to maintain the third payment. So the focus of our work with our discussions with staff was, okay, let's get this done. Let's meet those deadlines. How can we do it? And then recognizing that that second phase will be done over a proper time frame with proper engagement with the community and council. So it's like, how do we meet the agreement is the focus now, and then exceeding and systemic change would be phase 2. So phase 1, we have these 5 outstanding HAF initiatives that are to be completed by year end. There are a couple more, which Mr. Brown will be presenting on later in the agenda as well, that will meet some of the other outstanding ones, and they will also be moving forward so that we will meet the terms of HAF. And so these are the 5 items that we'll go over today. that urban systems will assist the district with achieving. So I'll go over each of these in detail as we go through the presentation, but they are meeting, like the HAF 2.2 is as that initiative is outlined in the agreement. And then when we're referring to that item, we're using the title like that's in the agreement. So I think in the actual recommendations before you, there could be some confusion based on the title of the HAF title, but we'll clarify that as we go. So maybe just the best thing is recognizing that the focus is on these 5, and then if we go through the presentation, I'll explain each one as we go. And then before we go into that, phase 2 is a systemic change, which everything that we learn in phase 1 is going to be helpful and flow into phase 2. But phase 2 is going to focus on a comprehensive zoning bylaw review. As we're even embarking on looking at phase 1 and coming up with some of the ideas before you, it's very clear that the district would benefit from a new, transparent, modern, simplified bylaw. It's quite a beast to work with. There's a lot of layers to that onion. So that will be a huge initiative. And then there's key components of that comprehensive review that requires additional community engagement on some sort of big moves in the bylaw that we've broken out so that we can be engaging on specific areas that will inform that larger process. And then another item that's been identified when we looked at the Housing Accelerator Fund initiative about adding some sort of green standards to the bylaw, which we can do and we're proposing to deal with by December. It became very clear that another requirement that we would recommend is the complete repeal and replace of the what you call now a subdivision control bylaw. It's from 1989. It's extremely out of date, and I imagine we'll go over that a bit. But there's I'd say a very high need to replace that bylaw as well. So we've added that to the list. So going back to phase 1, the first action that we've identified is adopting bylaw amendments to further prioritize housing over short-term vacation rentals. And when we looked at this and we looked at amendments that council's made to the zoning bylaw, there were 4 items that were identified through our research and working with staff that council has already done. Like you've already negotiated more long-term housing than short-term vacation rentals in these 4 developments that have had recent amendments. So we want to put those forward to CMHC as an example that you have prioritized long-term housing over short-term housing. And then staff have also been working on a separate initiative that's a separate item on the agenda to modernize secondary suite regulations. And that will be dealt with under a separate report. But that's also highlighting like adding secondary suites, for example, to duplexes and townhouses, which are now permitted in the building code. So we feel that the work that the district has already done or is about to do on the agenda today and in the coming agendas will meet this requirement. And in terms of HAF 2.3, this is applying rental-only zoning to existing and future rental housing properties. And there is another information report on the agenda regarding a housing agreement template, which also I think supports this initiative quite strongly. But there's also the ability to zone for rental-only tenures. And what we would like to do with council's endorsement is to sort of work with staff and council's properties that you may provide direction on to identify purpose-built rental properties, or even if they're mixed use, for example, someone might have some employee housing above a retail storefront, is that we could also pre-zone them or zone them for rental housing only. And that was really the intention of why they were built, and it's just protecting that in perpetuity. The intention is to go after, larger developments, and maybe if it's a store, like a mixed-use type building, it might not have a ton of purpose-built rentals above, but it would be more of a significant development. The intention is not to do this on accessory dwelling units, secondary suites, that type of thing, more significant. And so it's really focused on buildings that were built to be rentals. And some purpose-built rentals that were subsidized or not were funded, say, through CMHC programs. And I'm not sure at this stage if there's any of these in Ucluelet, but the funding was given that they must be rentals for a period of 10 years, but then they could revert back. So this zoning would protect situations from that of being stratified in the future. And then the next one is what we call HAF 2.4, which is pre-zoning appropriate lands for multifamily housing. And this is a key initiative of the comprehensive zoning bylaw review in phase 2, where we'd want to expand this to really identifying properties that could be zoned for multifamily housing, that have servicing and the potential in the community. We've taken a fairly conservative approach for the phase 1 because, one, we don't have a lot of time till the end of the year. There's 2 more council meetings left, and anything that wasn't aligned with the official community plan would trigger a public hearing. So what we've done is we've looked at the official community plan for sites that are already designated for multifamily housing that might not be zoned for multifamily housing. So the sites that are before you, which are 9 properties that we have a map on the next slide, but they are ones that were designated for multifamily, and that's what attracted us to those sites. And then looking at them, they are older buildings that will have a likelihood of development in the future or potential infill if they're in good shape and they've been renovated. They could be adding additional buildings to the property potentially. And there's in the 9 sites that have been identified, there's other R2 zone properties already in that neighborhood as well. So it just seemed like it wouldn't be a major concern for the community, and it also is designated in the OCP and very nicely located. But in terms of the second phase, we would be broadening the scope significantly, looking at the whole town, looking for sites, looking for district-owned properties potentially that don't have this zoning. If council has additional ideas that are designated for multifamily housing in the OCP, so that wouldn't require or trigger a public hearing, and that you see being added to the list, we would definitely be happy to take that direction and explore those, or any district-owned sites that you have interest in multifamily housing. By no means does this have to be the extent of it, and we are certainly looking for council's direction, but keeping in mind the bounds that we used were, this is phase 1, this is going to be a big part of phase 2, and we'll have more opportunity for engagement with council and the community in phase 2. So just looking at sort of a comparison to the R1 zone and the R2 zone, which we would propose zoning these properties to R2. The R2 zone does permit duplex dwelling and multifamily residential. There is a sliding scale for minimum lot size. We would recommend actually making these subdivision regulations potentially so that people could do a duplex on a smaller lot, but that would be something that we'd be seeking direction from council. Or if you want to keep it as per the minimum 1,000 square meters for multifamily residential, I think 8 of the 9 properties are already 1,000 square meters. So that would be, it'd be okay. They'd already meet that. There's some frontage requirements there that we would probably recommend would just become subdivision regulations versus a requirement at building permit. So the other thing is that the single family dwelling is still permitted in the R2 zone. So it wouldn't make any of those existing properties non-conforming. They'd already be able to, carry on as they are now. And then the next initiative is the 3.3. And this is requiring an occupied accessory dwelling prior to permitting a short-term rental. And this is one that we know that council has some concerns regarding the intent of this. And we've had conversations with CMHC, and the way it's worded, I think CMHC is prepared to be sort of somewhat flexible, but they want to see some action on this. And we've looked in detail at the bylaw, and this is an area where there's quite a lot of layers in the bylaw that could also create unintended consequences for changing. So we're trying to keep this scope fairly narrow at this stage, but this would be something that we'd really want to dive into with council and the community in phase 2. The VR1 zone, just off the top of my head, is like affecting about 20 properties in the municipality. It's a site-specific zone. It currently permits a single-family dwelling and 2 secondary suites, which is really interesting because the BC Building Code actually only permits 1 secondary suite in a single family. So there's some oddities there that I think are being proposed to be corrected in a subsequent report. It doesn't allow a detached accessory dwelling unit in this zone. And so when looking at the sequences, in I think it was 2022 that you allowed a detached accessory dwelling unit in the R1 zone, and this zone was created in 2015. So that change never transferred over to the VR1 zone. So if somebody had an R1 zone now, they could have a house, a suite, and a carriage house, if you will. And now if they wanted to do vacation rentals and apply for the VR1 zone, they couldn't actually be allowed to have an accessory dwelling unit. So what we're suggesting is that we allow an accessory dwelling unit in this zone, plus a secondary suite, and then of course the principal unit. The other change that we're suggesting is right now the principal resident must be in the single family house, and then they could rent out the secondary suite. And what we're suggesting for consideration is to allow more flexibility in the zone so that someone could purchase a property based on like a calculation that they could afford to live in the secondary suite, but they would need to rent the house, like the main part or principal part of the house out to say be a mortgage helper, fund their mortgage, and then maybe over years, once they have the equity built up, they could then move into the house and potentially do a vacation rental in the suite. So it's sort of adding a different angle there. The other thing is if council's interested in allowing the accessory dwelling unit, so that secondary suite except detached, what we're suggesting is that you just allow maximum flexibility on these 20 parcels, that they could have 2 short-term rentals and 1 principal resident must be on the site. If council wanted to have more stringent regulations to support permanent residents, you could require just 1 short-term rental and 2 permanent residents on the site. So that would be something we'd be seeking direction. Or we could just leave it like 1 principal resident on the site in any of the units. And that's the way we have it proposed. But if council has other feedback, we certainly would be willing to look at that and take that into consideration of the bylaw development. So that direction it's a great time to be providing that now, because we don't have a lot of time to be going back and forth with those bylaws. I think that was pretty much what I wanted to cover on that one as well. And then, yeah. Okay, I think that's pretty much good there. And then in terms of the secondary dwelling, yeah, so we've kind of, if you can see in the difference here, is we're proposing an accessory residential dwelling unit. And then, so now you have 2 short-term rentals, and they could be on any of the dwelling units on the site, not just limited to the main principal unit. So more flexibility to hopefully support people getting into the housing market that couldn't afford to live in the principal unit is the concept. The next one is updating the subdivision and development servicing standards bylaw, which is subdivision control bylaw in the district, to streamline the creation of low impact development and green infrastructure. So this would be, and the bylaw itself, the standards, as we've mentioned, are very out of date. So we would recommend standalone standards, and we're working with staff and the district's engineering consultant to sort of determine how these standards are conveyed at this time to the development community, but that we would create standards that meet the green infrastructure requirements, and then they would be included in your subdivision standards. So if somebody wanted to do it, it would be like clear, this is our standard for a rain garden or the extent of green infrastructure that UQLIT is typically dealing with. And then we would make sure that there is a clear standard available to someone wanting to come in and develop in UQLIT during phase 1 period. And then in phase 2, the recommendation is to do a complete comprehensive update of the zoning bylaw, or sorry, the subdivision servicing bylaw. And this is very important for developers coming to develop in the community, because when they're doing their pro formas and trying to figure out how much things are going to cost, they want to be able to go, okay, this is the road standard, these are the street lights, and know exactly like what they're going to cost, know exactly what they are, and like sort of not try to guess what they might be. So having them like clearly laid out and transparent is going to be very important, just to streamline and modernize the development approval process. There's also what we would recommend, and this is again like a phase 2, but there's what we call MMCD, which are like municipal standard construction documents. So most of our clients around BC are adopting the MMCD standards. So they're basically uniform across parts of the province based on like climates and otherwise, but then they would have some supplementary standards as well that are customized to the district. So most municipalities would have road standards that work in the context of the community, and some other provisions that are very important to the district, like those the green standards, for example, would be included likely in that bylaw. There's many changes to legislation that aren't reflected in your existing bylaw that needs to be updated as well. And then it would ensure like legislative compliance and also reduce the municipality to risks. And I think just including clarity and efficiency and reducing the timeline of negotiations right now that I'm imagining the development community is experiencing when they're not modern and clear. So that concludes the presentation. We've repeated on the slides the recommendations that are outlined in the report. So happy to answer any questions before council tables those recommendations. And one suggestion, if there is some confusion around the half titles in the recommendation, council may wish to just say like to fulfill half 2.4, for example, and then like strike the remainder of it if you think that it adds confusion to a recommendation. It just sort of came up that it might do so. But happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Couple of questions of my own. The 9 properties that you want to go from R1 to R2, there's been no consultation with them yet, is that correct? With those property owners?
Yes, Madam Mayor, there's been no consultation. This is only being provided via council report at this time. There'd be no public hearing that would be triggered because the zoning is aligned with the OCP and it's more than 50% residential. So it would actually be prohibited. When it comes to the zoning amendment, you do need to provide notice of first reading to those residents. And for sure, like we could work with staff to advise those residents as soon as possible, just because of the timeline. The extent of consultation that we would normally recommend is really tough to do. And so that's why we picked properties that were already in the OCP. It doesn't change. It doesn't make anything non-conforming. It just basically provides more flexibility. But we would certainly appreciate council's direction and how you feel that the district should engage.
Great, thank you. And there's no property tax implications for those property owners. It's still residential. R1 and R2 are still residential, correct?
Madam Mayor, they were still residential. We'd have to do analysis on like the other R2 sites to see if there's a variation in their assessments, which we have not done. And we could do so. But if so, I imagine it would be very marginal.
Right. And then just one last thing. On page 37, number 3, it references half 4.4 to achieve what half 4.4 is looking for, but half 4.4 is not on your chart. So just confused about that. You've got a 4.2 and a 4.3, but there's no 4.4. Wondering if maybe it's a typo. It's meant to say 3.3. Require an occupied accessory dwelling prior to permitting a short-term rental. That's 3.3, right? It's a typo. Okay, so it should have said 3. I looked everywhere for 4.4 and I could not find it. Okay, thank you. Questions from councillors? Councillor Anderson?
So, excuse me. So first of all, great job, Nancy. This was incredible. I think it's like going over to someone's house and they don't have a lot of ingredients in the fridge, and all of a sudden they whip up like a massive meal, and it's great. So I don't know how you did this, but I know you were between like a somewhat cantankerous council here that had dug their heels in, and you had CMHC on the other side with their heels in, and you were able to pull this off. So I hats off to you for that. The only thing I was just, I'm really trepidatious to bring anything up here, because I think like you've done like a really tight walk here to get this to work. So I don't want to poo-poo anything here, because it's a bit of a miracle. But the one thing that I was wondering with the VR zoning, when there is a VR zoning to me, then it was always, we knew that there weren't many left in town, and they tended to be look like they were being phased out, or they weren't being really issued in moving forward and from single family residences. But they know that there's a handful around, and The one thing was, it was almost kind of like the golden ticket. You were one of the few people that could rent your entire property and walk away, and you could have it there. And I'm just wondering, it looked like in the one slide that you had it, that now there's going to be where is it? It's right there. So the short-term rental provisions, VR1. I'm just wondering, is there now have to be a primary resident in the VR full time in the top, and if so, is that a function of Bill 35 and like from the province that dictates that, or is that something that the municipality has? And then my second question is if the municipality wanted to override that, and I'm not saying we do, I'm just theoretically speaking, is the province take precedent when they have like a bill like that? Does it take precedence over the municipality? Just out of curiosity, I'm not asking for you to do that.
Yeah, through the chair, I guess just maybe backing to the first question, and your zoning bylaw is a complex one, but our interpretation of the zoning bylaw is that in the VR1 zone, you still require a principal resident on site, and that they must occupy the principal dwelling unit, so the main house, and then you could rent out 2 secondary suites, which 2 secondary suites aren't actually permitted in the building code. So the provision for principal resident being on site, we recommend remaining. However, the switch is that principal resident could live in the secondary suite or a detached accessory dwelling unit. So we would still require that provision. It's just where that permanent residence is living is more flexible. And then when we go into phase 2, this would be, I think, how the community wants to deal with vacation rentals more broadly, I think would be part of that consultation that we have, and kind of work through that and work through whether it's, embedded in like residential zones, or is it more just in new areas? And that requires, I think, all kinds of engagement. But we see this as being, sort of a smaller scaled, streamlined approach that we could do within the time frame we have.
Excellent, thank you. That's a great report. I realized that it took a lot of work to do that, so thank you.
And through the chair, that was definitely a team effort with my colleague, Mr. Penner, and staff. We worked very closely together to come up with these ideas in a short order.
That's great. Thank you. It's much appreciated because, when we met with you at UBCM, it kind of put our minds at ease because we thought we were not going to qualify for the next two payments at all. But after talking to you and seeing that there was some room to work with these incentives, I went away feeling much better. So thank you for that. Any other questions for staff? Councillor Noel?
Yeah, no, wonderful. It's good. I did send you guys for disclosure. I did send them some of my questions already. You did hit a lot of those today, so I'm not going to cloud this conversation. Other than my only hang up is the VR1 for history. It's not in the little red book, but VR1's been a struggle, as he mentioned. Councillor Anderson mentioned it was kind of a golden ticket. There's 20 golden tickets to be able to do that, and it'd be questionable whether a lot of those VR1s are actually permanent residents living in it. So it's been one of those things, and trying to keep the tone of our neighborhoods. You buy your thing, your house transitions. I guess where I'm going is, do you see that changing VR1, the ability, would that give the ability for people to apply for VR1 zoning is where I'm going with this, because right now there's been a tune. There hasn't been VR1s issued. Would you agree with that?
We had an application from someone while you were mayor.
Yeah. Okay. So there's been
but it was rejected.
Correct. So because there's that. Although just for history, because it's just we've been fighting this, and so I love everything in your report. I think you did a wonderful job. It's just that VR1. I don't want to leave the impression that we change it all up, because out of those 20, there's a probability 8 of them will put in a detached suite, which I love, which is fantastic. But it does change the character of your neighbors that maybe are been tolerating those VR1s the way they've been established for decades. It does change it. Be my only thing. So and I don't like the fact that you could then now go into the garden shed. People are owning garden. Traditionally it's your caretaker. So outside, I don't want to cloud it. I do also like the fact that you picked that particular street. I think it's good. Obviously, you're correct. We did it in our OCP. The question is, why didn't you pick a couple other ideas? I know the back of Larch, I believe it also has the ability to do that. Just for this report to the government, I guess, is just trying to check off the boxes. And then would you be taking that offline? I know there's a bunch of questions here. I keep rambling. But do you see, in the phase 2, identifying perhaps other areas, including new subdivisions that are already only going to be permitted rental? I'll be quiet.
Through the chair, to answer the back end of that question, because I think Mr. Brown is going to address the front end of the question. But in terms of the multifamily sites, yes. I mean, when we go into phase 2, we're going to look everywhere and everything and assess it and consider the infrastructure capacity as well. And I mean, looking at any sites that could be district owned or have high likelihood of development, we'll be doing mapping exercises that are looking at sort of building value as a ratio to land value, which helps us, along with some other factors, to identify sites with high likelihood of redevelopment. So then it's it will draw our attention potentially collectively to sites that you might not think of. So yeah, we will do, as part of phase 2, we'll look at the entire community.
Yes, I think this was a really quick but thorough way of meeting some of those objectives. So thank you for that. Any other questions for staff or Nancy?
It was the first
Mr.
half
Brown?
question there.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just say at any point, anyone could come in and apply for the VR1 zoning, and whether it was OCP aligned or not would, question the trigger, or would trigger if it needed an OCP amendment. But they could make that application, and we would bring that to council for council's consideration. So regardless of whether there's any changes, that is just the reality. Someone can come in and ask. I would say, though, that I think it's important how Nancy has structured this is all the question we tend to sometimes, I think, get kind of locked in this idea of short term versus long term, and I think you'll see kind of an arrow through the reports tonight around how do we build in flexibility that acknowledges some of the economic drivers in the community, but also the very real need for housing and the crisis around that. Not necessarily centering ourselves in this question of short term and long term. That will probably emerge through the more structural process in phase 2, and there will be some questions there that the community and council will need to grapple with and make a decision on. But at the same time, we want to present council with options, especially in that phase 2, that doesn't just make it a binary equation, makes it more of a spectrum for council to consider and make decisions on, and not just on impulse, but through some thoughtful analysis from Nancy and her team and some data where we have it to make an informed decision. And ultimately that will be council to make those decisions, and there will be community input with that as well.
Great, thank you. I love the flexibility that you've sort of baked into some of these notions. So yeah, thank you again. If there's no other questions, there are some recommendations, and they would need to be read separately, I believe.
Okay, I'll move that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw for council's consideration to amend District of Ucluelet zoning bylaw number 1160, 2013 to apply rental only zoning to existing and future rental housing properties to fulfill half. What do you guys say that? Half. Half. Okay, that's simple. 2.3 apply rental zone only zoning to existing and future rental housing developments.
Do I have a second? Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed? That carries.
You take on the next one.
Oh, Councillor Hoare.
Of course.
Oh, Councillor Mafty, you're here. Okay.
Welcome to the crowd, Mark.
Oh, good. Thank you for that.
I will move that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw for council's consideration to amend District of Ucluelet zoning bylaw number 1160, 2013 to rezone the following parcels from R1 zone single-family residential to R2 zone medium-density residential to fulfill half 2.4 pre-zone appropriate lands for multifamily housing. Lot 7, Plan VIP 30080, District Lot 282, Clayoquot Land District. Lot 8, Plan VIP 30080, District Lot 282, Clayoquot Land District. Lot 9, Plan VIP 30080, District Lot 282, Clayoquot Land District. Lot 14, Plan VIP 27909, District Lot 282, Clayoquot Land District. Lot 13, Plan VIP 27909, District Lot 282, Clayoquot Land District. Lot 12, Plan VIP 27909, District Lot 282, Clayoquot Land District. Lot 11, Plan VIP 27909, District Lot 282, Clayoquot Land District. Lot 10, Plan VIP 27909, District Lot 282, Clayoquot Land District. Lot 8, Plan VIP 27909, District Lot 282, Clayoquot Land District. Did I get those?
Yeah, got it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Noel seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed? That carries.
I will move that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw for council's consideration to amend District of Ucluelet zoning bylaw number 1160, 2013 to permit accessory residential dwelling units in the VR1 zone, vacation rental VR1, and allow for the permitted short-term rental use to be in any of the 3 permitted dwelling units on a parcel so long as one unit contains permanent residence to fulfill half 3.3 require an occupied accessory dwelling prior to permitting a short-term rental.
No.
It says 4.4, but it's
a
3.3.
typo. We just went over that. Yeah. Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Oh, Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed? That carries.
I will move that council direct staff to amend the district's developing development servicing standards to incorporate low impact development and green infrastructure to fulfill HAF 4.2, update subdivision and development servicing standards bylaw to streamline the creation of low impact development and green infrastructure.
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion?
Yay, bioswales.
Seeing none, all in favor?
What did you call me?
Bioswales.
None opposed, that carries. And one more.
I will move that council directs staff to utilize housing accelerator funds to prepare a bylaw to replace subdivision control bylaw 1989 number 521 to modernize and incorporate MMCD standards and sustainability considerations.
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
Aye.
Thank you, Councillor Mafti. It's hard to see you. You're just a tiny blip on the screen up there.
Oh, that's all right. If I object to anything, I'll.
We'll hear from you. Okay. We could take a 5-minute break. Yeah. Okay. What time is it now? It's 5:55. Let's resume at 6. All right, we're back at 6:01. The second report tonight is titled Development Cost Charges Exemption for Affordable Housing, and it will be presented by, again, Mr. Tyler Brown, Director of Planning and Strategic Initiatives.
Thank you, Mayor. As you're all aware, development cost charges are collected through development. The key principle there is that growth-related pressures help pay for the need for upgrading or adding infrastructure that are directly or resulting from that growth pressure. However, from time to time, there are applicants that are aiming to develop affordable housing. 221 Minato is a perfect example where there's recently before you where there's an affordable element to that, and the DCC cost can be quite significant. Many jurisdictions do have reduction bylaws for those circumstances where it is affordable housing that's aimed to be provided. And we wanted to bring this forward to council because it has been raised in my short time here by a couple of development proponents just inquiring around DCC breaks, and there also is some affordable housing projects where the district has played a role in it, providing certain funds, and I think it's questionable whether that would have been required if there was other avenues around DCC exemptions, and there might have been an easier and cleaner way to provide support for those developments. So a lot of communities go this route. They develop a standalone bylaw. There is enabling legislation that allows it. There is criteria that those waivers or reductions can be provided. Not-for-profit rental housing, supportive living arrangements, for-profit affordable rental housing, and there's a couple other criteria. So wanted to bring this forward. If council is interested in this, we could have a bylaw in front of them fairly quickly. It would be a standalone bylaw that would work with the existing DCC bylaw and also be easily adapted to any future DCC bylaw. The advantage of the standalone bylaw is it does not require provincial approval. It exists independently of the actual DCC bylaw. That's important because if you ever want to make tweaks, you might be providing 50% reduction. You might decide after time that, hey, there's a lot going on. That is costing us a lot. We want to tweak that number. You don't want to be going to provincial, having that in your bylaw and kind of feeling stuck by that. So that's the real advantage of it. Or you might go the other way and you're really trying to provide affordable housing and you want to provide a greater reduction. Now, I would just note that the reduction does need to be made up from somewhere. I think there's some options, where that funding might come from. One of them was sort of discussed earlier in the evening with the delegation with respect to some of that online accommodation money. Other communities have been able to use housing accelerator funds for some of those reductions. So if we came back to council, we would be working with the CFO to provide some options on where council what they might want to consider for a reduction, and also how that difference might be funded over time. So the recommendation, Mayor, is in the report. Simply at this time to direct staff to come back with a bylaw for some readings, and that report would contain the analysis of what you might want to consider for a reduction, and where that funding gap could be made up. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you for the report. I found it interesting that traditionally DCCs were only permitted for roads, drainage, sanitary, sewer, water, and parkland. And then in 2023, it was expanded to include fire protection, police, highway, and solid waste and recycling facilities. I thought that was an interesting part of your report. How does this affect the fact that our DCC bylaw is currently being reviewed? Is this a standalone? This just takes it away from the company that's doing the review right now? It's Urban Systems, yeah.
Yeah, Your Worship, Urban Systems is currently reviewing the DCC bylaw. That's really going to be around developing the project lists that DCCs would fund, and then setting those projections out to ultimately determine what the DCC should be. So, X amount of dollars for roads. I can say universally those formulas are coming back and the DCCs are increasing because the cost of things are increasing. So, but that is the work that's underway. The a reduction bylaw or a standalone bylaw like this would it exists independently of that work. So it would initially function with the existing DCC bylaw and those rates set in that bylaw. And then once council has entertained and decide, and if they've decided they want to go with the new bylaw and those new rates, the standalone bylaw would simply be modified to reference the updated DCC bylaw.
Great, thank you for that explanation. Any other questions for staff?
I would just
Councillor Anderson?
just a quick comment through the mayor. I really enjoyed reading this one as well, and I can see what you've done here to balance it, and I can see how hard you've worked to make sure that affordable housing is incentivized, and then on top of that, it makes it essentially cheaper for the end user, like the person that is actually going to be buying these units. And I saw the list of what you included, including for-profit affordable housing, and I love that there's also the balance in there that DCCs you're not they still apply to the folks that are doing other developments, but I like that balance that's in there, that you've been able to shift that so that it does incentivize affordable housing here, which is exactly what we need. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, there is a recommendation if anybody would like to move that. Councillor Anderson?
We got this. My glasses on. I'll move the council direct staff to prepare a development cost charges DCC bylaw for affordable housing and prepare options for funding DCC reductions.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Noel seconds. Any further discussion? Comment?
And Mr. Brown, and I appreciate the fact that you did touch on the OAP. The fact is, we do have the ability to backfill some of this DCCs. So it's a bit of a unique opportunity that we have in Ucluelet. So I'm glad that you mentioned that in your report as well. So thank you.
Any further discussion or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. Thank you. The third report is titled Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Secondary Suite Options, and it will also be presented by Tyler Brown, Director of Planning and Strategic Initiatives.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a report that goes into detail, but I'll try to just really actually summarize it very quickly. First and foremost, just want to say the intention here is not to provide any limitation on short-term rentals. It's that there has identified barrier to the development of secondary suites that just simply doesn't need to exist. And so the zoning bylaw, as crafted, references, well, it really borrows from an older building code to develop the parameters for secondary suites. I say borrows, there's a little bit of deviation from that, slightly more restrictive than the old building code, but the building code has since changed, and based on provincial initiative to make it easier or more remove barriers to develop secondary suites in new and existing housing stock. We would like to come back for you is just an update to the zoning bylaw that takes out those outdated provisions and just leaves it to the building code to regulate that, not through the zoning code. So what that might allow is someone to renovate a house and more easily add a secondary suite because they're not worried about trying to identify the exact ratios and make sure the numbers work, and that sort of thing. So it's a fairly quick fix, and we could have that back in front of you very quickly. We believe it aligns with some of the HAF initiatives. Doesn't completely tick those boxes, but it is aligned with them, and I think would show a lot of effort in that regard. And I think most importantly, it would just make it easier for people in the community to develop secondary suite if that's what they want to do. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Your report also mentions that as of 2019, the building code is now allowing secondary suites in other forms of housing, such as duplexes and row housing. So that opens up the door to other options for people as well.
Absolutely, Mayor. But I think where we would really start to see some of that contemplated would be in that phase 2 zoning bylaws, where we can really that sort of the phase 2 of the HAF and that more comprehensive review of the zoning bylaw. that's where we can really start to look at some of those options and unlocking some of that capacity within Ucluelet itself to provide more housing options.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Brown? Councillor Anderson?
No, I was just gonna say through the mayor, just like the way that you've been able to pull this off. It's such a fun agenda to read, to be honest. And there's so many win-wins in all this. And before you'd explain, Ms. Henderson, that now someone can probably be in that situation where they could, if they buy a house and they live downstairs, and then they could move upstairs if they had a long-term renter up there, because of secondary suites. I see that the floor area ratio or the size has been changed and is more amenable, and it's more open than it was before. So again, just I think this is a win for everybody. This is a great one. Thank you.
Councillor Noel?
It's great. Honestly, I'm supportive of it. It's long overdue. Obviously, since 2019, it's been overdue. I guess my question is, you've been on both sides of the fence here, Mr. Brown. I'm like, if this was a bulletin that has been around since 2019, I'm curious why it's taken sometimes so long for this to hit, policy or bylaws with a local government. Would you say, I don't know who the question would be for, is this normal, like when you get government bulletins, that there's delays sometimes in implementing them in the community? That's my first question.
Yeah, I think ultimately every community makes that decision on their own, and there's a variety of factors in each community, staff capacity, political direction, and items like that. So I can't speak for the delay or the variance between when the change was made with building code and with respect to Ucluelet. Every community does have different contexts and different factors. So,
but I also think it illustrates the gap between the people who get the bulletin and then the councils, right? Again, it's great to see it because I know one of the struggles a lot of our community members have, it's the old, are you allowed to have a hot plate? Can't you have a hot plate? Can you have a stove? So this is going to clean up the gray area. So I'm looking forward to phase 2, and I'm also looking forward to community engagement, to letting people know that there are options for them in their homes and they don't have to hide that anymore. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, there is one recommendation. Councillor Anderson.
Before I read the motion, I just wanted to acknowledge that this was I think brought forward by Nicole Morin, our municipal inspector, and that's terrific. That's a great initiative for her to do that. I think this is a great report. So I'll move.
Council for that, but we're going to mention that too. So appreciate that.
Yeah, it's great work, and I'm really happy she brought it forward. I'll move that council direct staff to bring forward for first and second reading a zoning amendment bylaw to change the requirements around secondary suites in the district of Ucluelet zoning bylaw number 1160/2013.
I'd second that.
Councillor Noel seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. Thank you. That is a great report, and I noticed that Nicole's name was on that report. The fourth report is also from Mr. Brown, Director of Planning and Strategic Initiatives, and this is an authorization of encroachment agreement for signage at 1645 Cedar Road, Whiskey Landing.
Thank you, Mayor. Like the sign bylaw, this is one that really just coming on the tail end of it, or the street sign bylaw. This item had been sitting for a little bit, just with the bench strength in the planning department as it is. So we wanted to get it in front of council as quickly as possible. In short, we don't see any problems with the location at the staff level, and believe that the sign design is of a quality that is sort of appropriate for the development and the area. So happy to answer any questions to the best of my abilities, but fully acknowledging that there might be some history or context here that I'm not fully aware of. Thank you.
Great, thank you. This looks like just a bit of housekeeping to me, but any questions for staff? No? Okay, there's one recommendation.
I'll move that council authorize the encroachment agreement between Whiskey Landing and the District of Ucluelet to permit installation of a freestanding sign with municipal right-of-way.
Thank you, Councillor Noel.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion?
Can I just jump in for one quick second?
Yes, Councillor Mafty.
This is probably the least consequential item on the agenda. I'm going to vote against it, and my only rationale, I understand all the points in favor. I just feel like this one sign's useful. If we have 10 more like this, it's all working to make the community feel more and more like a resort. Like some sort of like Disney World situation where you've got these themed signs everywhere telling you where you are. I don't know that anyone's ever had a problem finding those businesses or those addresses before. I'm not opposed to this one specifically, but I'm opposed to the trend. And I feel like if I vote for this one, I have to vote for any others, and I don't want to do that. So with all due respect to the proponent, I'm going to vote against it for those reasons. Just unnecessary, and I think it creates a bit of a weird aesthetic.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mafty. Any other comments or questions?
I'll just chime in then, since it was going to be an easy one. So I always like it. Mr. Mafty puts it, makes it nice and thick. So, as the businesses down there, I would say that they've been probably, and Mr. Brown, you probably know the history, they've been probably trying to get the signage on the street. If you're a local small business, everybody wants to see their business on the road, whether that attracts more business or doesn't attract more business. If you're the business owner sitting behind the counter trying to get people into your store, saying that there's proper signage removes that the thought that maybe signage. I know that the Morridge, for example, spent about 5 years to get a sign up there, and there was a bunch of hoops they needed to go through. But when they finally got that, I know those tenants that were businesses that were down there truly appreciated it. So I come from the lens that the Whiskey Landing tenants, the businesses in general, are looking at any kind of way to showcase that they're down there to those people that may not know they're down there. So I do appreciate your comments, but I think the people that are running businesses in there might say otherwise.
Any other comments?
I think that's a fair point. You've convinced me to abstain rather than vote against it. So I'll split the difference.
All right then. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. The fifth report is titled Council Compensation Review, and it will be presented by Mr. Ed Chow, Director of Corporate Services and Bylaw.
Thank you. Through Mayor to Council. Since the last council meeting, council gave us direction, so we put an RFP at the BC bid. The bid is on September 25, with the closing date is on October 27, 3 p.m. Received 4 proposals before the deadline. One actually sent that night, which passed deadline. We didn't include it in the summary table. And but for the 4 proposals, we put them into the summary table based on evaluation criteria. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chow. They all 4 look fairly competent. The 4th one, BDO, is a little bit more expensive than the others, so I kind of ruled that one out personally myself. A typo in their proposal? Okay, then they're definitely ruled out. So comments from councillors? There is no recommendation because this is our review process, so staff are just looking for some recommendations.
Are we choosing one now?
Yes.
On what we read?
Yep.
Okay. So, how do you? I'm just trying
I have my favorite.
You do.
Yeah.
Rock, scissors, bear. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that they the one that jumped out at me was Mark Brown, just because he's part of the LGMA, I guess, and so just his sort of attachment to local government, it kind of jumped out at me. But and the price looked pretty good. So yeah, that was, and the timeline was decent as well. So that was one that jumped out at me.
Yeah, they all have pretty much the same timeline. Their cost is a little bit different, but Panatton and Associates, that's the one that was my favorite as well. Councillor Hoare, did you have a favorite?
I was sort of tossing back and forth between Panatton and Indigen. There's a piece of me then that prefers that it be a BC-based company. So that was part of it for me.
And Indigen is based in Ladysmith, it looks like.
Correct.
Right. So you were kind of going back and forth
and I
between
hadn't
those two.
actually made a final decision because I was enjoying sitting on the fence, just saying.
Councillor Mafty, did you have a favorite?
I don't know enough about the four options to have a preference. Whenever we're spending taxpayer money, I tend to start by looking at the bottom line. The costs seem to be close enough to each other that, I don't think that there's an obvious choice. I think that if there's any sort of base that we can put in a known individual, like Mark Brown, that stands for something, I definitely think the BC-based company would be great. If I had to pick, I'd either go for Panatton or Indigen.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Noel, did you have a favorite?
We're all saying the same tune, so it's one of the two that Mr. Mafty just described there. So I'm open. Mr. Brown's maybe been in government a little bit too long. I don't know. I guess the question would be going back to, have you worked with any of these consultants, Richard?
Mr. Brown, of course, did your by-election.
That's okay.
Yep.
Lots of Browns around. They're taking over the island.
Yes, and Mr. Brown's in the places. Mr. Chow may have some other. I don't believe I've worked with the other firm that you mentioned, Mr.
Yeah, we are not too familiar with the rest of the three proponents. I just want to say it is an indigenous-based consulting company based on Ladysmith. Once I received the proposal, I did email them just for some clarification. They did come back to say they don't have municipal government clients before. So they do have First Nation clients. Yeah.
There you go.
So we
Easy
would be there
peasy.
first. Okay.
We got a Brown.
All right. So I think we're all kind of leaning toward Panatton and Associates. All right. I'll make that motion that council authorize staff to award the council compensation review project to Panatton and Associates.
I'll second.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chow.
Thank you.
Is it okay?
Yeah, we can.
I can't hear Sean, but maybe that was an aside anyway.
That was an aside. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right. Notice of motion. Would anyone like to make a notice of motion? I believe Councillor Noel has.
I have 3 notice of motions. I just felt it was timely. Going into the budget, I just didn't want to wait till December or February. Then we just, I think these are important initiatives that we need to push forward. Do you happen to have them, Flo? Okay, you have them there? Okay, they'll come up.
you can go ahead and read.
Okay, you're good with that? Okay. 3 notice of motions. The first one is utility and telecommunications right-of-way compensation review to modernize the outdated hydro and telecommunication payment models that no longer reflect the actual infrastructure or impact, local impact, is my first motion I'll be making in the next meeting. And the second one is a fire services cost recovery review to clarify what's being billed, what's being missed, and to ensure we're not subsidizing external partners. And the last one is property classification and fair taxation review to identify properties that may be misclassified or underassessed relative to their true commercial or nightly rental use. Thank you for that.
So because we don't do notices of motion very often, this is an indication that these notices will be on the next agenda. Is that correct, Mr.
That's
Harding?
correct, Mayor. Yes. It's a way for one council member to bring an issue forward, gives council notice, and then the next meeting will be on there for you.
Great. So they'll be on our next agenda then.
I look forward to that. So thank you. Thanks, Flo.
Councillor Anderson, you were going to have one, but you're not prepared tonight.
No, well, no, I'm not. I don't need to do that. I was just going to be in regards to. Well, we talked about that. Yeah, so we're good.
Okay. So there are no other notices of motion. There is no correspondence. We have one information item on the agenda. It is titled Housing Accelerator Fund Project, Housing Agreement Template, and it will be presented by Mr. Brown, Director of Planning and Strategic Initiatives.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the Housing Accelerator Fund tasks was to look at a template for housing agreements. Very timely, as there's, in some of the recent developments, there's some negotiations and where I think it would have benefited everyone, especially some of the development proponents, to have a template. So there's a base level from which they can start from. It's been vetted by lawyers. It's not being pulled from other jurisdictions. And so we were able to use some of that recent experience and combine it with sort of best practices. Now, I will just say that a template is a starting point. Every development will be unique and there'll be unique circumstances, and that doesn't remove the need to have it vetted by the district's legal counsel. But it should just at least allow for a better starting place and lay out some expectations that we know we can feel confident in because it has been prepared by Young Anderson. One thing that Young Anderson, of note, and I think it was I really appreciate them highlighting it, is that oftentimes with housing agreements, the initial agreement can be signed, but then it gets very hard to track. And so they did mention that there is a mechanism where the district could choose to have right to first refusal for any sale. That's not with the intention of purchasing any property. It's just it now requires the developer or whoever owns the property, if it is going to change hands, the district is now aware that it's going for sale and can monitor to make sure that it falls to an eligible party. And it's that can be administratively burdensome though, so there is a kind of a balance to be struck there. But that is something I think I've made note of, and we'll make sure that when it arises, we're using that tool in the best way possible to protect the district's interests, especially when we're securing affordable housing. So this is just a for information item. It just kind of goes with the suite of reports tonight on Housing Accelerator Funds, but just so council's aware.
Great, thank you. I did highlight that section about right of first refusal. I think that's a great way to trigger the district that a property is going for sale, and making sure that it sells, or whatever happens to it happens in the way it was intended to be. And so you've got two here. There's a standardized housing agreement template for rental housing agreements and one for residential housing agreements. So yeah, this is really, we've been needing these for a very long time. I can think of several situations recently where housing agreements have been struggled with, and then they go to our lawyer, and our lawyer struggles with it, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is long overdue, and thank you very much for coming up with these. Any questions for Mr. Brown? No, seeing none, there's just a simple recommendation to receive. Councillor Anderson?
Was a little dismayed in the appendices that a senior is defined as someone at 55 years old. And I was like, oh God, we're dangerously close. Yeah, I know. Where do the discounts start? I'll move that council receive the report titled Housing Accelerator Fund Project Housing Agreement Templates for information.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion?
As the senior.
I'm senior than all of you.
True that.
No further discussion. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Thank you. Thank you for that report. Okay, so Councillor Anderson has a question about a previous report item on the agenda. So would now be a good time to for him to ask that question, Mr. Harding or Mr. Chow?
Can you tell a little bit more which question
Which
about
item?
what? Yeah.
Just a clarification regarding the street naming. We just I'm a bit concerned that what would we potentially be looking at for a delay for that? Is there anything by
For
by
Mr.
not-
McLean?
Yeah, for not putting that forward, are we going to hamstring a timeline here in any way?
So I did manage to pull up the PLA. The PLA does say addressing civic addresses will be assigned by the district's planning department prior to registration of the subdivision plan. So I think a strict reading of the PLA would suggest that the street name needs to be created in order to provide the addressing. With that said, my immediate impulse was to go to the approving officer and to modify the PLA to remove that condition. Not ideal, obviously. If we could assign the street addresses, we would want to, and undoubtedly we would want to be back in front of you with a bylaw to do that, to create the street name. But with that said, there's lots of parcels that exist all over the province that don't have an address, but they do have their legal description and they have a parcel identifier. So it's not required to create the parcels. So I feel comfortable going to the approving officer and saying, hey, if this is what's going to hold up the PLA, let's pull that out. And obviously that would be his decision, but I think it's well justified. And I would, immediately tomorrow be reaching out to Mr. McLean to try to find a street name that we can to get in front of council to meet that requirement. So my worry is not so much the subdivision; it's that I wouldn't want it to be holding up building permits because we haven't figured out the name of a street yet.
Right.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. That's great.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Okay, we're on to mayor's announcements. Just a reminder that Remembrance Day is this coming Tuesday, or next Tuesday, November 11th, at the Army Navy. The parade begins at 10:45 from the fire hall to the Army Navy Air Force building, and the ceremony will start at the cenotaph at 11 a.m. Looking at the weather forecast, bring an umbrella, but that's never stopped this particular ceremony from taking place. It's one that I love to attend, and in fact, I'm emceeing for the third time this year. So they're saying, please join us in the clubhouse for a free community luncheon directly after the ceremony. It's always really good food, and Bronwyn was very excited this year because she found a bagpiper. So that's going to be a treat for everyone to have a bagpiper this year. So I just wanted to make that announcement. And we'll move on to council committee reports. Councillor Anderson.
All right. I'm going to try and blast through a bunch here. There's definitely things I'm going to forget here, but the big thing, excuse me, was the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance Summit that you and I went to. So that was that's probably my favorite of all the conferences that we go to, and we have some really neat partnerships. I wouldn't want to say partnerships, but we've made contacts with folks over the last 2 to 3 years that I think will be incredibly beneficial for the economic diversity and development for our town, and kind of puts us in a really interesting place where the province and the country is right now. Even the Prime Minister's made some announcements with the budget where NATO will be involved with helping some coastal communities with decarbonization, or moving, like, for example, moving from diesel to electric. So we've also, as most know, Rising Tide Boat Works, vessel electrification, converting boats from diesel or gas to electric, just took possession yesterday, I believe today. So it's a pretty monumental undertaking, and that fits in line with some other national and provincial mandates that we actually kind of fall into. So for our particular situation, which is very similar to a lot of situations up and down the coast, as commercial fishing takes a bit of a hit and some resource things, we're opening up to other possibilities. And it turns out that we've really moved forward with a lot of things like seaweed, wave energy, offshore wind, and this vessel electrification is all sort of part of this program. So seaweed was a big one at the Vaea, and we were able to go to one of the talks we went to was the business of seaweed, excuse me, pathways to partnership, strengthening coastal futures on Vancouver Island. And that had Mike Williamson, the CEO for Cascadia Seaweed, which is probably the most prolific and most profitable in seaweed industry, was able to speak there. And Mark Smith, who's also the Pacific Seaweed Industry Association Executive Director. So, I mean, how many times did he say "you clueless" during that panel? He brought it up constantly. So I think they were just being annoying enough that we can put ourselves in the line of fire. So if there's funding out there to do this stuff, we want to make sure that we're the ones who get it. And we've got some of the highest turnover of biomass for seaweed in the entire planet right in Barkley. So I think that makes sense, and it's also something that's in partnership with our local First Nations community as well, which is awesome. There was really interesting things that came out of those meetings. One of them is when we look at the possibility of having wave energy here right now, up the Yaklet up by Friendly Cove are doing, they're just trying to finish their round of funding to get one of their a wave energy center up there that'll be powering the DFO building and the Coast Guard building there and their lighthouse, and also that First Nations community there, which is really exciting because after that we're essentially next. And some of the meetings that we went to were really cool in the sense that BC Hydro in BC is putting in $36 billion into transmission and storage of energy across the province. 10% of that, or $3.6 billion, goes into Vancouver Island. So we brought up the question to the groups that are in charge of doing this, like, what are the chances that, we know that most of this power comes from hydroelectric and dams. What are the chances of having coastal communities move into this, like, offshore wind and wave energy? And we got some really good answers on that even though it's a developing technology, that we're in a really good spot to do it, and it makes sense for us to do it. And we've also got some irons in the fire right now with people doing feasibility studies, our second round of feasibility studies, which is great. And then just the idea that there's some things I didn't know, like the Tlilquayet Nation has 3 power plants, and they own 75% of those power plants. So that's BC Hydro's working with First Nations to de-risk and actually give ownership. So to those nations, and then they actually sell that energy back to BC Hydro. So there's chances for, like, relationships here that are great and give us a chance to do energy sustainability in the long term, and to also be able to power when we have, like, vessel electrification or we do seaweed or those things moving forward. We have a chance to do that. And then there's also a feasibility study right now. We're doing a microgrid in town, so our chances of having power outages are almost none. So we would be able to have storage and transmission in town. So I'll get off my soapbox here. I love this stuff, and I think there's a chance that we might be able to knock something out here. So sorry, I'll step back here. I become a zealot about this kind of thing.
And did you attend anything other than Vaea?
Oh, you mean Blue Economy meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, sorry. I just right after that. So yesterday, I had the meeting with Blue Economy, which is Coast, and there could be different people involved in there. So right now, Cheryl McClay wants to come to the next one, who's jobs and economic growth. So there's a line of funding for that. But the Blue Economy meeting was great. It was with Coast, and we're talking about, so Coast, I don't know how much I'm allowed to even say about this, but Coast is going to be setting up the Center for Oceanographic Applied Sustainable Technologies, and they're going to have a federal hub at that same lot that Vessel Electrification is having, Rising Tide Boat Works. So it's going to become actually like an innovation center. So there's going to be other technologies that'll be set up there. So we're just kind of talking about that, and they also Coast manages some of these projects and tries to get funding. So the Yaquit Wave Energy project that's up off Friendly Cove, they're just trying to finish the funding to get that to move forward. But they've pretty much said that. Full disclosure, I think that's that DFO building. That's what we want to have that as what Coast describes as a Ucluelet alternative energy center. So that would be sort of a base of operations to have that, and also have an academic research station with some translatable commercialization there as well. So you'd have like NIC, UBC, UVic, and have those classes would be able to be there, kind of like a Banfield situation. But you would also have the spin-off for those courses into the commercialized or industry side, like so Cascadia Seaweed would be there, or other small businesses. Again, you got me going here, and now I'm not going to stop talking, so that's that.
All right, thank you.
Mic drop.
Councillor Hoare?
Well, we all, including Councillor Anderson, attended a couple of other things as well, but that's okay. He's allowed to be excited about the Blue Economy things. We had a code of conduct workshop with Young Anderson, which was just a good reminder about, what it's like to be up here and some of the things that go on. We had a committee of the whole with our nonprofits, and I am missing my notes. So we had more than 10, I believe. Was it 11 participants? 9. Always really interesting to hear what they're up to, and as per usual, Redfish has got more projects on the go than they're not an octopus man, they're like a sunflower star or something. There's so many arms going out. Really always exciting to hear what everybody's up to. On the 19th was Edge to Edge, and the mayor and I were hanging out at the finish line. And that turned out to be a nice day and an amazing event, and so many people. So that was exciting. And then we also had a budget workshop on October 21st, because we have started that process. So watch for more budget stuff. And that's all I got.
Great, thank you. Councillor Mafty?
Nothing major to add. I guess just more on the community side. Great Halloween. I know there were a few different activities organized through town in anticipation of rainy weather, but of course, miraculously, once again, cleared up just in time for trick-or-treating. And it was just one of my favorite holidays, and just a great time to be out and about. It seemed like every kid in Yuki was out there trick-or-treating, but I know that ANAF had a good turnout, UCC had a turnout, people going to that Nintendo party. It's just awesome how many community events are running through town. I made an appearance at the Edge to Edge to cheer and spectate, and it was great. I also attended some, but not all of the events that Sean and Jen already mentioned.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councillor Mafty. Councillor Noel?
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Was there not a food bank on the Edge ribbon cutting? We haven't had a council meeting since then, because our last
There's
council...
so much in my life every day. That's just a normal thing for me. So I don't. I think we did do a food bank on the Edge. You're baiting me. You could talk about that. You're the one that cut the ribbon. I'm just behind the scenes there stirring the pot. So it's yeah, you can talk about it, but no, I have nothing to report.
Okay, well, I have a big long list here because our last council meeting was cancelled, so we haven't had one since before October 4th. October 4th was the Food Bank on the Edge new building grand opening, and actually it was Chris Martin that cut the ribbon. I just helped hold it. But it was actually a good turnout. It was a lovely day. There was some nice refreshments and a cake, and it happened to be a Christmas ribbon, but what the heck. It was all good. And yeah, there was a few speeches. A lot of volunteer efforts went into making that happen, that new building, and the board, of course, itself. But there were a lot of people that contributed their time and energy and products at no cost. So that was a really great day, great celebration. The next day, October 5th, was the Ucluelet Fire Rescue Open House from 10 till 1. Another beautiful sunny day, and lots and lots of people, lots and lots of kids. They cooked up some great hamburgers and hot dogs for us all. And they had an obstacle course, one for kids, one for adults, and demonstrations on how to use a fire extinguisher. And then they had the Jaws of Life crack open a vehicle. So that was a great day. On this October 6th, had a Zoom meeting with Cascadia, along with Councillor Anderson regarding seaweed and kelp. Later that day, I had an ACRD personnel committee meeting, which then went in camera because they were talking about their exempt compensation review. So they hired a firm to do a compensation review for their exempt staff specifically. On the 7th was an ACRD West Coast committee meeting. There were 2 delegations, Tofino Farms and the Care Network, both asking for, presenting what they do out at the airport land and looking for some forgiveness on the leases, which have gone up dramatically out there. And so the suggestion for staff was to come up with some sort of partnership agreement, because both these organizations are giving very much to all our communities, and so there could be some forgiveness on their lease rates for that in return for that. There was also a proposal to develop a program to reduce ICI, and I always have to look that up. That's it's I should have highlighted it. It's the stream at the landfill that has to do with construction and demolition. ICI, it stands for something. Anyway, there is going to be a proposal to develop that program to divert those products from the landfill and into another area that could potentially be reused by other construction firms. And there was a lease application from Redfish to lease some land out at the airport for a project that they're working on, I believe, in conjunction with the Taloquit. And then there was some discussion about the garbage habituated bears, and the ACRD has come up with a project coordinator that is going to identify how we can not have as many bears habituated, and a lot of it has to do with their inability, their current ability to break into those big bins, and how to reduce that ability, because that's what brings them around. And then, of course, there is the West Coast Transit seasonal change letter or notification, and I've since just signed a letter to the ACRD and BC Transit requesting that they reconsider that change and keep those late buses running. And so we'll see where that goes. And the letter also requested that they put a bus stop at our new medical clinic, because currently there isn't one there. October 7th was our Code of Conduct workshop, which also included conflict of interest. That was a really good workshop. On the 8th, I had an ACRD Committee of the Whole meeting, which was one of a stream of Committee of the Whole meetings reviewing the ACRD procedure bylaw And so this was the last of those meetings to, because they broke the procedure bylaw into pieces. So each committee of the whole meeting dealt with a different piece of it. And so that's now finalized, followed by an ACRD board meeting that afternoon. October 15th, I had a Tourism Ucluelet board meeting, and nothing really more to report because Nick was our delegation this evening. And on the 16th was our committee of the whole meeting, and I have it marked down here that 7 societies presented. So that was way fewer than normal. But maybe the date just didn't work for all of them. The 19th was the Edge to Edge half marathon and 10K. They had over 700 runners, so really good event, and a great day for it too, considering what the forecast was. But the sun actually came out for part of that. On the 20th, I had a Teams meeting with Island Health, specifically going over what initiatives they have been utilizing to bring in doctors from the United States to Canada. So that was a good meeting. They've had some success. I think there's 19. I think they've recruited already, doctors from the U.S. to Vancouver Island specifically. On the 21st was our budget workshop with our CFO, Mr. Cadman. I thought that was extremely valuable. On the 22nd, another Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Committee of the Whole meeting, and that was done with McElhaney, actually, to go over their development approvals process. I think Mr. Brown worked on that, but you weren't actually at that meeting when they presented their findings, but no surprises there. And followed that afternoon by an ACRD board meeting. I'm almost done. On the 24th was West Coast Operational Season Review. So this was a meeting that the park initiated back in the spring to bring all the shareholders together, or stakeholders together, to talk about tourism for the summer and how to promote respectful tourism and how to do, like, doing backroads cleanups. And so this meeting on the 24th of October was to a follow-up to that one to see how the summer actually progressed and what everybody discovered. It's definitely way less mess on the back roads than there was during COVID. There still is some that exists, but it's nowhere near what it was back in 2020, 2021. The next one is going to take place on May 7th. So again, it'll be a precursor to the busy summer season, and Nick Curry has agreed to chair that meeting. And then, of course, the 27th to the 31st was the VAIA, Vancouver Island Economic Alliance in Nanaimo. My favorite sessions were the 2 seafood sessions, and the food sovereignty one I found really interesting as well, and the aquaculture one. And the trade show was excellent. It's definitely, I think, of the 4 conferences I go to every year, it's my favorite. There's a lot of networking. It's not just elected officials, it's business people, it's entrepreneurs, so you don't have to be an elected official to attend. And I think that's what I like about it, because there's a lot of great networking that takes place. Okay, that was a lot of meetings in October. So now we are moving on to question period. This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions and comment on matters within Council's jurisdiction. Representations about bylaws that Council is prohibited from holding a public hearing on, or bylaws that were subject to a public hearing, are not permitted at this time. There are no audience members that wish to address Council. Are there any members of the public attending by Zoom or telephone that wish to address Council?
There are none, Mayor.
And have we received any emails to community@ucluelet.ca during the meeting?
We have not.
Okay. So I will move that the November 4th, 2025 regular council meeting be closed to the public pursuant to the following sections of the community charter. 90(1)(a), personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality. 90 brackets 1 bracket C, labor relations or other employee relations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Noel seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed. That carries. I think Councillor Mafty has left us here.